Join us on the Path Radio Mix online. And to get there, type in thepathradio.com. That's thepathradio.com. And enjoy free streaming music all day long. That's it. thepathradio.com. All right, now let's get to the main show, the Monthly Social Podcast, with me, your host, Guido Perino, as you go on with Guido. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Monthly Social. It is September. I hope you've had a fantastic summer. Thank you for being here with me on the show, and I hope you take a moment to subscribe so you can get notified about new content. Speaking of new content for this month, I have our special guest, Tanna Marshall, and she is the founder of Infinite Woman, a woman's empowerment coach, and we're also going to talk about overcoming nice girl syndrome. What is that? You're going to have to check that out. Then I'm going to cover off for you a review of vacations down at Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, some restaurants, some of the resorts, some of the experience, the flights, etc. So hopefully we can set you up if you're ever planning to do that. And then we're going to look at Generation Z, exploring who are they? What are they all about? How do they feel about finance, health, politics, and how are they going to influence the world in the coming years? Plus, we got new music from Aaron Lee, Corvus Lore, In Theory, and Kelly Monroe. A great September show. I hope you enjoy it. Let's go. Before we get things rolling, let's hear from one of our friends of the podcast, Johnny Prosciutto. Johnny Prosciutto, artisanal Italian homemade products. We make it like our grandfather, or as we say, Nonno. Naturally cured, old-fashioned, and delicious. Order online at johnnyprosciutto.com, and we deliver right to your front door, where the only thing left for you to do is enjoy it with your friends and family. That's johnnyprosciutto.com. I'd like to welcome to the Monthly Social, intuitive, women's empowerment coach, spiritual teacher, author, creator of the Overcoming Nice Girl Syndrome program, and founder of Infinite Woman, a feminine community supporting, inspiring, and connecting like-hearted women through programs and events. Our guest, Tanna Marshall. Welcome to the show, Tanna. Thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here, Guido. I really appreciate it.
Tanna, you've got so many things going on. That introduction, like there's a lot to you.
There is. I am overwhelmed sometimes, but yeah, love it all.
So I'm really excited. I can't thank you enough for doing this because I do want to dissect all the different things that you're working on. And I have a feeling we're going to cover a whole bunch of different topics, and folks are going to consume this information in different ways, and we're going to help a lot of different people with the things we're going to talk about today. So what I want to start with is something a little bit more personal, Tanna. You were diagnosed with lupus at the age of 15, and you say that that was the start of your journey towards researching health and wellness. And there are a few people I know with varying degrees of lupus, and I understand, there is no cure, but you say that after 35 years that you've healed yourself. And I thought maybe what answers or strategies have you found that you might be willing to share, that could either help or even inspire some of those folks that we know?
Well, lupus is a weird disease, and it's different for everybody. It's varying degrees, varying symptoms, that kind of thing. My situation was I got sick one summer when I was 15, took 3 months of tests to diagnose it. And it was lupus erythematosus, so it was systemic. I did this one with a rash on the face. I didn't have that. It was all systemic. But I was fatigued. I had arthritis all over my whole body. And I just dealt with it. I didn't really dwell on it, and I didn't have a poor me attitude. I mean, I was in pain a lot of the time, and I just dealt with it. And my parents did everything they could to help me and make me comfortable. And it got a little better as time went on. And when I was 18, I was working in a flower shop, and this was in the winter, and it was freezing, and I had a really bad relapse. My finger, everything was so tight. My dad had to bring me extra aspirin. I used to take, I don't think they even make this anymore, arthritis strength buffer, and I used to take 15 a day. Thank you, liver, for not giving out on me. I took 5 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, 5 in the evening, just to be able to move. And this particular day, my dad had to bring me more aspirin and a jacket. And by the time I got off, I couldn't bend my fingers. I couldn't get them around my steering wheel. I couldn't wrap them around my stick shift. And I went to the doctor the next day. They made me quit the job, and they put me on steroids and Darvon. And after a week, and they made me quit the job. After a week of being in this drugged out stupor, I thought, I don't like the way I feel. And I stopped taking everything, and I felt better immediately. And I thought, there's got to be a better way to be healthy and feel good. And so that's when I started researching natural remedies, herbs, alternative therapies, and that kind of thing when I was 18. And that just continued on the side because, as you know, I wound up going to Capitol Records when I was 21. But I always did all this stuff on the side and got into energy work, became a massage therapist. But the thing that allowed me to heal myself years later, because I knew I could heal it. And there are a lot of people who've healed themselves of lupus. And this is not to say anything for anyone who has it and can't get a grip on it. And like, oh, why can't I heal it? I don't want anyone to beat themselves up because everybody has their own situation and their own journey. You got to love yourself where you are. But I knew from following Louise Hay. Are you familiar with Louise Hay?
I'm not, no.
She is pretty much well, she's passed away, but her publishing company, Hay House, is the largest self-help spiritual publishing house in the world. And I found her, someone told me about her my first week at Capitol. And she healed herself of cancer many years before. And it was a combination of remedies, diet, mental work. She went into therapy. She had to work through anger, resentment. And so a lot of it was emotional. And I knew that I could heal this, but I didn't want to because I was still fatigued a lot of the time. And I thought, if I heal this, I'll have nothing to blame my fatigue on. And then if I rest, people will think I'm lazy and unproductive. So I consciously hung on to it. And that's something I want to point out. A lot of times people will develop or hang on to an illness, usually unconsciously, because they're getting a need met. So people need to be compassionate with themselves. If you have something going on, there's an imbalance because you have a need that is trying to be met. I was somewhat conscious of mine. But then in 2008, you know Eckhart Tolle?
No.
Okay, that's okay. I'm throwing a lot of things. Not everybody's in the self-help world. He wrote a couple of books. One is called The Power of Now, but in 2008, he wrote a book called, okay, you've heard of that, right?
Yeah.
So in 2008, A New Earth came out, and he did an online course with Oprah. This is when online courses were brand new. So I participated in that. And there was one nugget that he said. He was talking about how we identify ourselves. And it could be a role in our family. It could be our career. It could be a talent. And I realized that I had been identifying myself with lupus ever since I was diagnosed. I would meet somebody, if I was dating somebody or had a new boss, like, hi, my name is Tanna and I have lupus. FYI, some days I can't get out of bed. And I thought, I don't want to be identified with that anymore. And I knew I was ready to let go of it. And I felt something click here and here. And I went to my doctor and she tested me and she called me a few days later. She's like, you don't have lupus anymore. And I was like, oh, I felt so powerful and so strong and just like, wow, okay. I was ready to let go of it. But unfortunately, the other side of that is like, now I never let myself rest because I'm like, I don't have a chronic illness anymore. But that was my whole journey. So the mental part is a big, big deal, but I just don't ever want anyone to blame themselves for anything going on. But I want them to realize they do have the power to heal themselves, but also acknowledge if you're getting a need met, honor yourself for getting that need met in the way that makes sense for you at the moment.
Yeah. And Tanna, I think there's a couple of other important things that you said in there. Everybody's different. And how we, how something consumes us or how our bodies react to something very different. And I don't minimize that for anybody. But the other part of it is, and it's not just for lupus, but many other things in our lives can become how we identify with, and they can block us from where we should maybe naturally be, right? Because it's easy to say, and I'll use,
you know what? I had a long day. I don't feel like I don't feel like running today. I don't feel like doing that exercise today. Or my knee hurts a little bit and maybe I don't want to tweak it. And it's easy to do those things, right? And again, I'm not minimizing it comparison to lupus, but I'm just saying we have these other scenarios where it's not just lupus, but if you think of you're in a different scenario for yourself, a different health scenario, where if you could step outside of that for a moment, and it's not easy. I get it, not easy. And that's why maybe we're going to talk about some supports that we may have down the road in this conversation and how others can help us get through that. Tanna, you mentioned Capitol Records. Now, if you've listened to the multiple shows I host, I've got the Path Radio Spotlight on YouTube. There's the pathradio.com. And of course, this one, the monthlysocial.com. And music is a big part of all of my shows, right? I love music. For a guy who's deaf in one ear, I love music, right? Now, I understand you said you were 21. You worked at Capitol Records. Are you still working there?
No, I was laid off in 2008.
Okay, so no Capitol Records. Now, but working there was life-changing for you, right? For a number of reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have to say the first thing was that first week when someone told me about Louise Hay's book. And I went out and I found it, and I found this whole world of self-help. And there was a bookstore near me called The Psychic Eye. And I went there and I was devouring like 4 or 5 books a week. And I just couldn't get enough of this stuff. So I took a deep dive into my spirituality. And I loved working at Capitol because I wanted to be in the music industry. Yeah. And so that fed my soul in a different way. But I met most of my close friends there. We have our mutual friend, Jody Glisman Bast. I met her right away. We've been friends ever since I started there, like 35 years now. We've been in each other's weddings. And I had a really unique experience, and everybody at Capitol, we're a family, and a lot of us are still connected. And we talk about how we were and still are a family. I met my husband there. Actually, when I was working in the art department, and the head of the art department at the time, Tommy Steele, a few years later, he's the one that turned me on to Abraham Hicks. Have you heard of Abraham Hicks?
No.
Okay.
You know what? You're going to say the name, then you're going to say something that Abraham didn't. I'm going to go, oh, that's it. Okay, I have heard of the product. I'm horrible with names until you tell me the product. So
it's okay. Well, Abraham Hicks is actually, there's a woman named Esther Hicks who, she doesn't like the word channel, but she translates a group of beings called Abraham, and they have amazing law of attraction teachings. So Tommy turned me on to Abraham. He was always my spiritual mentor. And that was the one thing that he gave me that changed my life, because my husband, we had worked together and we're friends, and he was married when we worked together, but then later he got divorced. And years later, just exchanging voicemails, he left me a voicemail. I was like, oh, I love him. And it took 2 years of all this effort trying to have dinner parties and show up wherever he was. And then Tommy sent me this Abraham tape, and I learned about Abraham's 68-second process, where you just focus on something and visualize it and feel it. First, it's increments of 17 seconds up to 68 seconds. And that's when there's this energetic combustion point where the universe goes, got it. And after I started doing that, we were together 2 months later. So 2 years of effort, 2 months of visualizing and feeling it. And it's a long story, but we're still together. We've gotten married 3 times. And he's like, tell people we never got divorced. I was like, we never got divorced. We just got married 3 times. So he didn't want to get married initially. And like, I have a friend that's like, for a guy who didn't want to get married, he's marrying that out of you.
That's kind of cool. So a renewal, three times you renewed it, sort of thing.
Well, we got married, and then we got remarried because we didn't like our anniversary. And then we did have a vow renewal because we did everything out of order. Then we had a vow renewal at Capitol. We had it in the studios, took pictures on the roof. The majority of the guests were our Capitol family. So it was a really magical experience to have it there where we met 30 years prior.
That is so nice. What a nice story. I love it. And I like the 3 days. And so I'm making notes here of all the names and all the different tidbits you're giving us, because I want to include it in the notes for everybody, right? In case they don't know and they can look that stuff up. Now, the music component, having worked at Capitol and looking at the way the music industry was then versus now, any take on it?
It's so different. It started to change a few years before I left. It wasn't so much run by music people anymore. It was taken over by corporate people. I can't remember who, because Universal took it over right before I got laid off. And a few years before that, I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but I think it was a biscuit company. A British biscuit company came in. So it became all about the numbers and not so much about the artist. But going back even farther, Napster, nobody paid attention. They needed to pay attention and get a handle on it much sooner. That changed everything way before corporate came in and kind of took over the music industry. But I was thinking about this the other day, and I think one of the good things is that musicians can have more control over their own careers. You can put your music out anywhere, on YouTube, on social media. And if you catch the wave, or the right person sees you and gives you a platform, and you just happen to take off and become popular, you can have your own career without the record company. But it's just very different now. And
It is.
Friends that I have that are still at the company, or they've gotten laid off, is so corporate. I mean, we had the best time when we were there. We just had such a good time, and it was great people. There's still a lot of great people there, but it's very, very corporate.
You know what? I hear that a lot. And when we get into that business mode of things, the focus is so much on the transaction and not the individual, not getting to know the person. And it's funny you mentioned about everybody can put a song out now, and we have all this social media, and it's almost like we've gone through a bit of a wave, right? Like, before the big companies came in, an artist would go in, they'd cut a single, and they'd put out the single, there'd be a B-side, and that would get played on the radio, and they'd put out a series of singles. Then we did this transition to, let's put out these albums. The big companies came in, and you have the album, the tour, and now with social media, artists are back to putting out the single. And it's almost like full circle, right? The medium has changed. It's forced us to do things a little differently. And then we're seeing all these smaller labels pop up. And one thing that I'm finding in common with all of them is that the artists say, well, why'd you go with that label? Why didn't you hold out for one of the bigger ones? And they say, these guys care about me. They're interested in the music. They're interested in who we are, what our sound is, what we're trying to do. And I hear that over and over and over, Tanna. So I think you're onto something in terms of what that arc was, and from your past experiences. You mentioned earlier, when you're at Capital, you started getting into some of these books, but you yourself are an author. And I want to ask a couple of questions on a couple of your books. You wrote a book called Living Peacefully in a Big City, a guide to maintaining your sanity, health, and happiness. What inspired you to write that book?
I was on a trip with my best friend in Kauai. I think it was 1995, I can't remember, 90s. And first of all, everything was in Technicolor, and it was so beautiful, but the people were so nice. Everywhere we went, people were nice. Strangers are waving to each other. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to move here. And then I thought, I don't want to move here. I want this where I live. I'm a native Los Angeles. I'm actually a Valley girl, born and raised in Encino, but my mom is native Angelino. So I'm second generation native. And it's interesting because people would say to me sometimes when they meet me, like, oh, you're so nice. You don't seem like you're from here. And I'm like, all the people that are like very Hollywood, they're not from here. They come here and they act very Hollywood, and they get this new attitude and what they think they're supposed to act like here because of it's California and entertainment and all that kind of thing. So I started writing this book. I had been studying self-help for probably about 7 or 8 years at this point, and I had retained a lot of it. And I wrote for just solid in between times at work, after work. It all came pouring out of me in about 3 months. But I was 27, and I had two thoughts. I thought, you know what? I'm only 27. Who's going to listen to me? But there are people younger than I was who are out there writing spiritual books and have a large following. But also, I wanted to write about things I didn't have enough life experience to write about yet, like relationships. I was still dating, and nothing was lasting longer than a few months at that point. So I just put everything on hold. And then when I got laid off, I thought, okay, now I'm going to finish my book. So I got laid off in 2008. I had just finished a program where I got certified as a holistic health practitioner because I realized the year before, like, this is what I really want to do. So the timing was perfect. I got laid off a month before I graduated with my certification, and I had severance for about a year. So I thought, I'm going to finish my book. So I finished my book and I put it out, and I'm actually in the process of updating it. So it's not focused on big city. I did that because I was focusing on people who live in cities like Los Angeles or New York or Chicago, places where it's a big city. And how do you maintain that part of yourself without getting lost in all the superficiality and all the different personalities and stuff that can tend to derail you from your personal growth or who you are as a person inside. But that was my main goal for writing this book. And it's just short little chapters addressing all different kinds of issues. So it doesn't need to be read from cover to cover. You can go and look for your issue and hopefully find some help and support with that.
And that sounds awesome. And what attracted me to it was actually the title, Big City, living in the greater Toronto area, and having had to travel, to and from downtown in 2.5-hour ride, sometimes 3 hours to travel 30 kilometers, and the idea of living peacefully. Right. And it's kind of like, okay, what is, what advice, how can I do this while I'm doing these things? But you say you're updating it. Is that soon or?
Yeah, I'm trying to find the time to do it. Yeah. I just want it to be a little bit more general. It's still going to address everything that's there. I just want to update a certain set, like, the section on my husband, we had just gotten married. Now we've gotten married 2 more times. So I can expand that. And I just have more life experience to add to it now. The reason I put it on before. But I'm glad that you found value in that and that it spoke to you, because you can be peaceful anywhere, but it's a little more difficult when you're someplace with a lot of noise and congestion and people, and maybe not the nicest people. Yeah. But my goal was to provide something so people could find that peace within themselves, so they would be kinder to themselves and then kinder to others. And I was hoping to have some kind of chain reaction there where people felt better. They were nicer to everybody. And then those people were nicer, like that old hair commercial. I told 2 friends and they told 2 friends and so on.
And you know what, Tanna, as you're saying this, I'm thinking to myself, you're right. And you use the word noise. It doesn't have to be a big city, because there's all different kinds of noise that we have all around us. And it's not necessarily the noise of the city, but it could be relationship noise, and it could be school noise, and it could be work noise, and it could be just about anything. So I'm looking forward to the update. Hopefully you're going to let us know when that happens. There's another one of your books that caught my attention. You wrote another one called The Enlightened Caregiver, a holistic care guide for you and your loved one. Now, this book comes from another personal experience taking care of your mom, who was dealing with type 2 diabetes, dementia, congestive heart failure, and arthritis. And you wrote it from your lessons as a caregiver. And, the way that things are going now in society, we're dealing with an aging population in many parts of the world. And I know myself and my friends, we all have aging parents, and we're asking, some of these things are happening to our parents or even our grandparents. And, was it hard for you to write the book because it came from such a personal center? And then how will it help other caregivers if they consume that information in your book?
Well, it wasn't really hard. It was just supposed to be a little ebook or maybe a PDF, because I was applying all of my holistic health knowledge to my mom and her care. Because just to give you a little background, when my dad was dying in 2003, he asked me to move in with her and take care of her. And, it was a tough decision, but I knew I was going to do it because my parents are amazing and did everything for me. So she had lost her eye in she had lost the sight in her left eye in a freak accident in 2002. So I think he just wanted someone to be there for her, but she didn't really need me full time till about 2010. And I had been trying to get my business going. And at that point I was like, she needs me full time. So I was in charge of her meals, her exercise, her entertainment, her mental stimulus. I had her in senior daycare, her pills, her doctor's appointments, all of that kind of stuff. I had to shower her, bathe her. I did everything. And her doctor at one point said, "Gosh, she's doing so well. What are you doing?" And I had made her gluten-free. And like I said, I did energy and mental work with her, and I got her medications reduced. I got her off insulin completely, which was great. And I kept reducing her blood pressure medication because we were handling that naturally. And I made sure she was happy. That was a really big thing. I went to a caregiver support group early on. And one of the things I learned was your main job as a caregiver is to make sure that they feel safe and loved. So that was always my goal. That was always my intention. And even when my mom didn't always remember who I was, she knew I was her person that took care of her. And because she was doing so well, I thought, okay, I'll write all this stuff down. And then it just turned into a whole book. But as much as advice caring for a loved one, and it's from my experience caring for a parent, the primary issue being dementia, but we were also dealing with congestive heart failure and type 2 diabetes, as you said. But it was also for the caregiver, like how do you take care of yourself? You have to make time for yourself. You have to learn to set boundaries with people that might be intrusive or interrupting your routine, because a lot of people will have a lot of opinions when you're caring for somebody, other people, and it comes from a place of love. They care about that person too. So they might be questioning or suggesting stuff. And you have to learn how to manage all of these things in addition to the monumental job of caring for that person. And I feel like I need to update that book too, because that came out in 2014. My mom died in 2018. So there's a whole slew of other things that you need to deal with as that person is declining, with hospice care, preparing for them. I always called it later, preparing for later. And the guilt that sometimes comes with that, because you love this person, you don't want to lose them, but you want your life back, and your life, you can't have your life again until they're gone. I mean, there's so many emotions and so many things that come up. And then there's all the practical stuff of settling their estate and family issues and all that kind of thing. So there's a lot there. And I just wanted to give as much support to the caregivers as I could and help them with practical advice, and then also give them some support for themselves.
What a great perspective. Yeah, you thought of both ends of it. I think when we're in these scenarios, we often think just the one way, right? We're taking care of the elderly person, and we pour everything into that, and then we might forget about ourselves in the process. And there's got to be that delicate balance where you can be guilt-free for what it is that you're doing and not doing, and being able to even ask for help. So again, looking forward to the update on that one. But it sounds like there's a lot of stuff that we can extract from that book, even as it is today. I'll put the links in that for folks, and that way they can even get the updates when you update those. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, you're a very helpful person here, and you've continued to focus on helping others, especially women. How did you come to do the work that you're doing now? Like, what was the transition to helping women?
Well, my clients were women to begin with. And my husband at one point said, why don't you just work with women? You have such a good rapport. You get along with them. You're so connected. You really relate to them. And my relationships with my girlfriends were always super important to me. So it's just something that has always been a foundation and a staple in my life, going all the way back to high school. We had busing in Los Angeles when I was just entering junior high. And my dad was a retired policeman, and I was going to be bused to a really scary area. And he was like, no. So I was put in private school. So for high school, I went to an all-girls Catholic school. And I remember the first day just being there was all girls, and we were all in uniform, and I loved wearing a uniform. It gave me this sense of community and belonging. And I was an ugly duckling, and there were no boys around to be mean to me or make me feel stupid. And it was just such a relief. And I was involved in a Masonic organization for girls as an adolescent called Job's Daughters. And I was a leader in there. So I was connected to a lot of young women there and forming a lot of bonds there, and learned leadership roles and speaking, how to do public speaking. So it was just natural for me. And so I just decided to focus specifically on women and create grids where Infinite Woman was actually an idea that was dropped into my head from a spirit guide when I was in the steam room at the spa in late 2011. But I'm like, okay, here's my community. Because I love planning things and I love having fun. So I'm like, okay, I can coach and teach and share what I know and support these women and gather them together for fun as well. So that's why I have programs and events for that community.
And I'm going to ask you some questions about the programs in the community. It's interesting. I didn't know that you went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And what's interesting is in my hometown of Sault Ste. Marie, and everybody who listens to the shows, they go, this guy never stops talking about Sault Ste. Marie, but it's my hometown. It's where we grew up, right? So we had an all-girls Catholic high school. It was called the Mount St. Joseph College. And we had an all-boys Catholic school called St. Mary's. The year that I was going to go to I was ready to go to grade 9 here, and that's where I would have gone. They changed it to co-ed, the St. Mary's. But they left Mount St. Joseph College all girls. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, I know several of the girls who went to Mount St. Joseph College, and there is a bit of a different, I'm going to get myself in trouble for the ones that went to St. Mary's, but it's okay. I just find there's a bit of a different connection with those, with those women, as the other ones. And I'm not taking anything away from the St. Mary's College ones. You guys are great. Loved you. Thank you for being my friend way back then. If you still are, that's cool. But Mount St. Joseph girls, they just, I don't know. They built this different community, maybe because they were together in a different way without all the other noise that came in the co-ed, school. I want to ask you this, and for folks listening, they're going to say, how did he get to this point? And they will too, I think, if they get to know your programs or read more about you and get to know what it is that you're doing. Why is it important for women to learn to set healthy boundaries? Can you give us some insights on that?
Well, I created that because it's primarily women my age and older, like Gen X and baby boomers, because we were raised with a different set of not rules, but just priorities, let's say, that we are supposed to put everyone else first. We're supposed to come last, take care of everyone else, especially the men in your life. And a lot of women have just done that their whole lives. And women don't feel they have the right to speak up for themselves or make themselves a priority. And I believe this is why a lot of women get sick. They get breast cancer because the breasts represent nurturing. They're not nurturing themselves. They're not getting nurtured. And a lot of times, and this kind of goes back to the illness thing, sometimes women don't give themselves time for themselves unless they get sick, and they're forced to, and they're literally knocked on their butts and finally getting care from doctors or nurses. And it's something that I have seen not as prevalent in subsequent generations, like the millennials. I have 2 nieces who are millennials, and they were just raised with more of a voice and more confidence. And I'm generalizing. This obviously isn't every single person and not every single female who's in that generation and others following. But I've just noticed that they have this level of confidence, like, yeah, I'm all that and a bag of chips, and I can do this and I can do that, and I can speak. This is what I think. And, they're just so much more forthcoming with their opinions, and they feel confident speaking up, speaking their truth, saying no, setting boundaries. I mean, there's always going to be that thing amongst women sometimes where they don't feel like they can do that. But in general, the older generations are much more quiet and terrified of being called selfish. And selfish is actually a good thing. Everybody's selfish. Everybody wants what they want. They want to take care of themselves, and we all need to be selfish. So it's not necessarily a bad word, because if we're selfish in a healthy way, taking care of ourselves, that only benefits the people around us. But I think a lot of older women are terrified of being called selfish by their husbands or family members or bosses or, anybody that is going to not suffer, but in their minds suffer if she pulls back and says, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go do this for myself. So I think that's why these older women need the support of coaches like me, and then a community of other women who are like, yeah, we're with you. And yeah, you're strong and you're okay to make yourself a priority.
Now, Tanna, you referenced generations in your experience. And if this isn't something that you've come across, that's cool. Just let me know. Does culture play into it at all?
Oh my God.
Or is it the same across? Are you noticing that regardless of the culture, we still have this boundary concern, no matter the culture?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are countries where women aren't allowed to, I can't even think of an example, because they're not allowed to do anything or they could get killed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a huge topic. And there are a lot of cultures where the man is just, he's the boss. That is just the way it is. And there are a lot of women who are happy to be in that role beside him or beneath him. And there's nothing wrong with that. That works for a lot of people. But where I'm saying is, if it's detrimental to somebody, where if a woman wants to do something for herself and she doesn't feel like she can, or she doesn't feel like she can speak up for herself and voice an opinion or say no to something, those are the women that need to be empowered. But yeah, there's a lot of this going on in all different cultures all over the world.
So let's talk about some of that empowerment and understanding it. You have a program called Overcoming Nice Girl Syndrome. First, what is, and maybe we've been talking about it, I'm not sure, but let me know, what is Nice Girl Syndrome? And then tell us a little bit about the program.
Well, nice girls are the ones I was just describing, the women who are older and we have to be nice. And everyone's like, you're so nice. Like, I'm nice. And in general, that usually means you're nice and be quiet. And don't voice an opinion. Don't upset anybody. Don't rock the boat. So we're just so used to that. No, you're so nice. And it's a compliment. It's definitely a compliment. But it's also, and this is one of the modules of my program, a lot of women have the disease to please, where we just are so used to doing everything for everyone all the time. And you don't always get anything back, or you don't get much back. And it's not always reciprocated. And then often it's taken for granted. But we're so used to giving, we just keep giving because that's our nature. We're loving and we're generous and we want to give and we want to take care of people. And some women don't pay attention to the fact that I'm kind of exhausted and no one is taking care of me. And that's when illness can set in, or exhaustion, fatigue, chronic illnesses develop, or they don't even think to ask for help or support because, they don't want to bother anyone. They don't want to inconvenience anyone. I did that with my mom. I did have to ask for help here and there, but there were a lot of people like, I don't want to inconvenience them. So I'll just take it on all by myself. So it's just being nice goes hand in hand with the disease to please. And that's okay. It's great to do things for people and be generous, but there just needs to be a balance. And that's where boundaries come in. Like, okay, I've given enough. Now I need to go back and take care of myself.
Hannah, if I'm asking this wrong again, let me know. As you're explaining this, is there a point where is there a point of no return, or is there a point of return when you get to the spot where you say, I've overcome nice girl syndrome, but now I've gone way over on this side and I've taken it to a different level where you're, earlier in our conversation, we were saying we use things in our lives as reasons and excuses and as crutches for other behaviors and other things. Is there a danger and it's maybe not even a question just for nice girl, but for any of us, is there a danger to not recognizing anymore that, okay, I've gone past the nice girl. It's all about me and that's it. And, is there that aspect to it that we would consider?
I love your question because that makes me think women who are like this, they're always going to be like this to a certain degree. Mm-hmm. And they're always going to be having to make sure they're finding balance for themselves. It's kind of like if you lose a lot of weight, you're always going to kind of have to watch it to make sure you don't gain that weight back again. And you're going to have to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. So, because if a woman went way off in the other end, then they'd be a narcissist. And these women are not narcissists. Narcissists are the ones that usually they're taking care of, that are like, how dare you think of yourself and not me? So these women are usually empaths, where they feel everything for everybody. They want to take care of them. They don't want to upset them. So there's really no danger of a woman who's a nice girl ever turning into that or becoming arrogant. Because let me address this too. There's confidence and there's arrogance. Genuine confidence is really attractive. That's someone who's just really, they know themselves. They like who they are. They know who they are. Arrogance is trying to cover up insecurity with, this puffed up attitude and presence and bragging and that kind of thing, and just a condescending attitude. These women are never going to be like that, in my opinion. There's always an exception, but there's not really a danger, but it's funny because I did think of one thing when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I'd been through so much crap with guys. I went through this phase that I called, can I swear? Is it okay if I swear?
Yeah, I'll beep it out.
Okay. I went through this phase where I call it getting in touch with my inner bitch, where that's when I started to set boundaries, not strong enough, but I would say no. And I would call people on their crap and voice my opinion and stand up for myself. But even that, I was still a nice girl and still taking care of everybody and not always getting my own needs met. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I think, as you're putting it into perspective in terms of, the folks who are in this program, the folks we identify, the women that we identify here, they have a certain set of characteristics that, they might get to that point, but it's not really what it's about continuing in that point. It's just, dealing with their current nice syndrome that we're really dealing with that part of the characteristic. And I'm saying, I said women, and I'm thinking for myself, well, what if could I get into that, something like that? Like if I ever did something like that, could I go? And then you're right. Like if I think about my core, I probably couldn't. I probably couldn't, right? It's not in me. It's not in our natural self to do that. I got to ask this. And you talked about, we were talking about generations and stuff. Is it true that many older women suffer from nice girl syndrome as opposed to, and you kind of touched on a little bit with the generations as opposed to the younger? Is that statistically you've seen that?
I've seen that amongst my peers, my colleagues, my friends, just in general, because there are other programs out there aimed at this kind of not condition, I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but just women. Yeah. It's usually women who are older because, like I said, because it was another generation and we were raised to just be nice and be quiet and take care of everybody else. So yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about before. That's really what that's about.
Now, Tanna, you have on your website, tannamarshall.com, you have a quiz on there. It's called Self-Care Boundary Quiz. I believe it's part of a preliminary step in the program. Can you tell us a little bit about the quiz? Who should take it? What will it reveal for them? What do we do with the info once we take the quiz? Can I take the quiz?
You can take the quiz, but it's aimed at women who are not set. You can do it, but it's aimed at women who need to learn to set boundaries, but it helps them see where they're setting boundaries and where they're not. And I always say it helps you see how well you prioritize your well-being or not. And based on their answers, they will get one of 3 customized tapping. Are you familiar with tapping, emotional freedom technique, EFT tapping?
No.
Okay. You're getting spiritual self-help education today.
Do tell and let us know. Yeah.
This is a therapy called emotional freedom technique. It was created by a chiropractor many years ago and perpetuated by Gary Craig. And now Nick and Jessica Ordner of the Tapping Solution, they have exploded it. It's basically psychological acupressure. So you're tapping on specific meridian points while you're addressing a specific issue. And it can be anything from pain to addiction to trauma to phobias, that kind of thing. So I use it quite a lot. I use it with myself. I use it with my clients all the time. I use it in my groups all the time. And it has pretty immediate results. So you go through and you address these issues and you follow it up with a positive statement. It's usually, let's say, even though I feel like I can't set boundaries, and we start here actually, even though I can't set boundaries and I feel like everyone's walking all over me, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So we have a setup statement, then we go through all of the tapping points addressing that issue, like nobody respects me, no one appreciates me, all of the negative stuff. And then we move into more positive statements, which we've cleared out some of that negative stuff. Or like I said, it could be a phobia. It could be for smoking or eating sugar or anything like that. And then you move into the more positive statements like, I respect myself. Other people respect me. I love and approve of myself. And it has this shift in your mind and in your body, and people have had miraculous results. So I created 3 different tapping sessions based on you're great at setting boundaries. Here's some reinforcement. you're kind of good at setting boundaries. Let's reinforce that and help with the other areas where you're not so great at it, or you're terrible at setting boundaries and you need some major support. So let's do a whole tapping session around building your confidence that it's okay for you to take care of yourself. So that's what they get when they take the quiz. But then I have a whole slew of other resources for them to help them set boundaries, to reinforce that positive attitude. And they also get a free 3-video mini series of overcoming nice girl syndrome. So there's a lot of stuff that they get just from taking that quiz.
I like that. So it's not just one of these, answer a few questions and, all paths lead to the same thing. It's really the questions the answers are used to give everybody a path that they would work with you on that's more custom to their own reflection. I feel like I'm getting this is like next level self-care that you're giving us here on these tips and everything. So certainly one of the most comprehensive self-care conversations that I've ever had on the show. So I'm learning stuff here. I might take the quiz just for fun. I know it's for women. I don't know.
You can take the quiz if you want.
I would just be interested on where I would land on the thing, but that's just me, like the curious George and me doing stuff like that. So it's good that you're laughing with me, not at me. Thank you. Tanna, you also have, and you've said this word a few times, and you've corrected me before we set this up, and I said to you, I want to ask you some of these questions, and you corrected me a couple of times. One of the times it wasn't my fault. It was the spell checker thing, the auto thing, but you said infinite woman. Yeah. You have a community called Infinite Woman, and it offers feminine support. And I know, we've touched on all these other things. Why do women need a feminine community for support?
Because there's really nothing like women coming together and supporting each other. And I know there are women out there who have not had great experiences with female friendships. Maybe they've experienced cattiness or competitiveness over guys or other things. But in my experience, it's just so important because the world is pretty much set up to support men. It's a given. And we're seeing it in our country right now where women's rights are being stripped left and right. And so I think on an individual, personal level, it really helps for women to have a group of girlfriends because you can also just let your hair down and relax and be yourself when you know you're in a safe space with, I like the term like-hearted, with like-hearted women. And it's very empowering. And also it's great to, my husband is completely supportive of this. Sometimes I'll sacrifice our time together to go be with a girlfriend. He's like, go be with her. You're always so happy when you get back and go do it. And so he is just unbelievably supportive. And I'm so grateful for men and you fall into this category too, because you're having me as a guest and I appreciate it. Men who appreciate that, go be with your girlfriends. Because also in relationships, I think it's important for men and women or women and women or men and men to go off and do your own thing every once in a while. Have some separate people and some separate interests, maintain your individuality, and then you have something to bring back to the relationship.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this, I don't want this to sound detrimental. When you have a group of women, you can have one, if it's meant to be a women's group, and one man comes in, it just, the energy just shifts. And it's just not as safe of a place to be yourself. And, it depends on the man and who he is and what the situation is. But it's just, they call it the divine feminine a lot. But it's just, to me, it's just women coming together. And also, you can just be girly and be girls. Teenage girls are always giggling and everything together. When adult women get together, sometimes they're going to giggle and laugh too, because there's no one around to judge them for it. And I had a friend that I used to go visit up in Northern California, and we would get all, because we'd known each other since we were 9 and 10 years old, and her husband would make fun of us for being giggly, and she's divorced from him now. Yay. but it's just, it explains my point, where women just need that connection, that support, that energy from each other. And then they have more energy to bring back to their families, to the men in their relationships, to their children. I just think it's really nurturing for women and really important.
Yeah, nurturing, your self-care evolution in that. Tanna, between the program and the community, and you used the term disease to please earlier. Are these things, and then are there other things that, in terms of how women can begin to recover from the disease to please?
Well, getting support is the first thing, because sometimes you don't know how do I start saying no? What if they get upset with me? What'll happen? Getting some support and knowing, and that's another reason for the community is like, here's a group of women who are going to support you. Like, yeah, stand your ground. It's okay. And the way I teach it with my clients and in this program is you have to be patient with these other people, because it's like any new thing, you introduce something new or change, and there's going to be pushback and people are going to be upset. And I liken it to changing a child's bedtime. Like, what if you make the bedtime earlier? They're going to kick and scream and be upset, but eventually they're going to get used to it and calm down and go to sleep at the new bedtime. So you have to prepare yourself for people getting upset and doing a little kicking and screaming. And you stay patient. And I always say, you do it with love and compassion. You do it for yourself because you're doing this for yourself. And then you have to have love and compassion for them, because this is new. It's foreign. They don't like it. They don't understand it, but eventually they'll get used to it. So that patience and love and compassion for both. And it's just harder to do on your own. Like, I went through it, and this is why I created this program. And I had support. I had coaches and friends and my husband. So I've had to do it. But when you have a bigger community and something that's available to you to support you while you're making these changes, it's really valuable.
Tanna, you mentioned your husband a few times now, in terms of support. He sounds like a great guy. So hats off to him. But is there something that men in general can do to help in any of these areas? I mean, and I don't want to stereotype men or, my friends out there. Sometimes we just tend to be fixers, right? Like, if something's broken, I want to fix it. What tool do I need? I need a hammer. I need a saw. I need a screwdriver. Let me fix it. Right. And I'm not in any way suggesting that women need to be fixed. I'm saying that men, sometimes the way we look at things is, how do I do better at that? How do I help? How do I help? Or what are the things that I do that can be right so that I'm not wrong? Right. So is there anything that men can do in general to help support?
Yeah. And I love this question. It's very simple. Listen to her. I went through this with my husband like a year or two ago, because I would be upset about something. And he's like, well, let me do this. I'm like, stop trying to fix it. Just listen to me. Just be with me while I'm upset. And I know it's, but I think that's a positive thing about men, that they want to fix it. If they have a woman that they love, oh my God, I don't want her to be in pain or upset or have a problem. I want to fix it. So I commend all the men who want to fix it. I get it. But sometimes, and ask her, like, what do you need from me? That's a really good thing to do, because sometimes it's like, I just need you to listen to me. I just need you to hold me. I just need you to let me cry. Or it could be like, just take me to the movies, or, something, take me out to dinner, or just ask her what she needs. And when she's upset, just listen. It's as simple as that.
Just listen. It's almost we need a t-shirt. Just listen.
Good.
It would. Maybe we'll see one on the site. Just listen.
Well,
women everywhere will give it as a gift to their husbands, Tanna.
Yes. My husband is starting a new t-shirt. There's a whole history with him. He was huge with t-shirts in the 80s. He had a very popular store called Heaven in Century City Mall in California, and it spread throughout but the Heaven t-shirt was huge. And he's now starting a whole new t-shirt line. So I'm like, I might have to suggest this to him.
We'll have to keep in touch on the t-shirt side. Yeah. Tanna, I want to thank you for sharing your insights on your books and your journey and how you help others. You're so genuine and so sincere. Thank you for your programs and advocacy for women. Before I let you go, I know I've asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with?
I just want to thank you for having me and giving me this platform to share all this information and resources that maybe some of your listeners have never heard of or didn't know about. And maybe it's going to give some of the men and women, give them some support for something that's going on in their lives. So I just want to thank you. I really appreciate you having me on, Guido.
And things that I didn't know that I've learned. So thank you, Tanna. That is intuitive women's empowerment coach, spiritual teacher, and author, Tanna Marshall. helping women transform their kindness into personal power to create fun and fulfilling lives. I'll have her contact info in the show notes. Thank you again, Tanya, and I hope that you'll come back sometime.
Anytime. Thank you so much, Guido.
Take care.
You too.
Now, before we get to our next segment, let's hear from one of our friends of the podcast, Chasers Fresh Juice.
Hi, I'm Richard Chase, introducing Chasers Fresh Juice, a local business in Toronto. We've been in business for over 20 years, initially supporting our local Toronto area and now servicing all of Canada. Chasers provides fresh organic juices, ingredients including citrus zest, dehydrated garnishes, and fresh citrus peels to enhance any cocktail or recipe you can think of. We have successfully supplied restaurants, distilleries, craft breweries, and bakeries across the country. Reach out to orders@chasersjuice.com for any questions you may have. We are a customized fresh juice company, and I'm sure we can help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, at Chasers Fresh Juice. Now, before we get to our next segment, which is on Universal Studios, we got restaurant reviews, we got hotel reviews, resort reviews, travel reviews, all sorts of great reviews that will help you plan your own vacation at some point. But before we do that, let's listen to some music, because I got a lot of music here for you today. Let's go check out Aaron Lee and his new song, Bahia Sunshine. You can also see my interview with Aaron over on the Path Radio Spotlight on YouTube. And to get there, you would go to youtube.com/the Path Radio Mix. I'll have that in the show notes so you can check it out and learn a little bit more about Aaron Lee and his music and how he plays with the iconic band Y&T. But for now, here is Aaron Lee with Bahia Sunshine. Bahia, Sunshine. You can learn a lot more about the song, great insights on it and Aaron Lee over on the Path Radio Spotlight on YouTube. I'll have that link in the show notes for you, and you can enjoy that content as well. So I thought that song would be a great intro to talk about Universal Studios and a little vacation and getting there and some places that you eat and things that you do. So let's talk about that.
All right. So for this segment of the podcast, I wanted to cover off planning a trip to Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. And part of that is going to be reviewing some of the experiences in restaurants and theme parks and resorts. But before I can get to Orlando, before I can get to Universal, before I can get to those places, we actually had to go through planning and getting there. And part of the getting there was, how are we going to get there? Driving is a really long drive, and for different reasons, a lot of folks aren't going to spend 20 plus hours in the car, depending on where you're coming from, of course. If you're coming from the north of the Toronto, Ontario, Canada area, it's quite the drive. So, we look to flights, we look to airplanes. And, one of the conveniences is, well, you're here in Ontario, you got Pearson Airport in Toronto. There's a Toronto Island Airport. And so we started looking at the possibility of flights out of Toronto to get to Orlando. And the reason that we got to looking at flights and booking ourselves was that when I was dealing with Universal and through their website and contacting their customer service, one of the kind people there said, look, you're probably really not saving any money by booking through us. But more importantly, we can't guarantee that you're going to get the seats that you think you're going to get if you book through us. If you go directly to the airline, you have a better chance of getting the seats that you booked to get. Now, I haven't traveled in a lot of years now, especially on an airplane, and it was a bit of a head scratcher. And I said, well, what do you mean? What do you mean you can't guarantee the seats if I'm booking a package through you? And the kind guest services agent said, look, we're just a third party in this. We're just booking it at a convenience. You can achieve the same thing, maybe better, if you just go directly to the airlines that you want to fly with and book that. And then let us know. You'll let us know when you're arriving, and all of the other things as part of the coming to Universal package will take place. Fair enough. And I tested it out. I said, okay, well, give me your price. Give me the price with, your flights included in the package. Because I wanted to look at two things. One, the certainty of having the flight that I say that I'm paying for, and then the cost. Is there a cost difference? And for that first part, for the cost, there was absolutely no difference. I wasn't saving anything by going through Universal Studios and saying, sure, book my flights. In fact, I was taking a risk, as the agent was telling me, because they couldn't guarantee the seats that I was expecting to get when I booked that flight. So my journey began. And I started looking at the different airlines that fly out of Toronto, out of Pearson Airport. And that was a real eye-opener, because the first part of the experience said, look, I want to go from Toronto to Orlando. And that way I could take a shuttle from the Orlando airport, a short shuttle ride to the Universal Studio Resort and theme park. The majority of the airlines did not provide, in any kind of abundance, or really there was only one or two, they didn't really provide a direct flight from Toronto to Orlando. They provided a flight from Toronto to Montreal to Orlando. They provided a flight from Toronto to Chicago to Orlando. They provided a flight from Toronto to New York to Orlando. They even provided, I believe, a flight from Toronto to Salt Lake City, Utah, and then to Orlando. And what all of these flights did was they turned what is potentially a 2-hour flight from here, from Toronto to Orlando, maybe 2.5, into 10 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours, and so on. And so when you're looking at that, you're thinking to yourself, that is just phenomenal. Like that's a lot of time that I would be spending to travel 2 hours to spend 10 to 16 hours doing so. And so, that really, it kind of turned me off. I didn't really want to do that kind of a travel day. So then we looked and we said, okay, well, hey, Air Canada offers a flight directly to Orlando. Yay. All right. So we found one. One of the challenges is that flight left at 6 a.m., which means, and it's an international flight. You have to be at the airport a whole bunch of hours ahead of time. And so then you start to think and go, look, I got to get up at 2 a.m, get things ready, make my way to Pearson, so that I could catch a 6 a.m. flight. I might get into Orlando at, 8:30, 9 o'clock, but that's already a long day because now I'm up most of the night, to catch this, 6 a.m. flight. But part of me thought, well, maybe we could do that. And maybe we get the early check-in and maybe we rest when we get there, right? So that was a thought. So then you start pricing it out. I start pricing the thing out. And I don't even know if I can mention the price, but it was astronomical. The cost of the flights, to take 4 of us down there was more than what it would have cost to just be in Orlando, to be at Universal, to be part of the theme parks and have your tickets and go on the rides and on. It was significantly more than that. And so, then I'm going, wow, this is so difficult. I can't take the flight directly there in any kind of convenient way. And the cost of doing it in the one way that they do offer doesn't make me feel good about getting up at, 2 a.m. And then the cost of it is just so out there, right? I think we were nearing, for 4 people, I think we were nearing about $7,400 Canadian. And so I paused that. And it wasn't for a couple of days during the planning phase that I was having a conversation with one of the kids, and the idea dawned on me, Buffalo. How about Buffalo? Never flown out of Buffalo. Never even driven to Buffalo. I hadn't had a real reason, and I know I'm not insulting any Buffalo Bills fans. Love to go there for a game. In fact, now that I've gone to Buffalo, I might even go again a few times. But yeah, Buffalo. So I start looking up things in Buffalo, and lo and behold, first of all, they have direct flights. They don't just have direct flights. They have direct flights that offer some convenience in terms of the arrival times across different airlines. And so that was the first win. The second win was that in Canadian prices, the cost was less than half of what it would have been had I been flown out of Pearson in Toronto. Less than half. And so then this makes it much more affordable in terms of, okay, well, I'm not doubling up here on just travel. I'm saving a bunch of money here. And so there was a second part of it. The flight that I did want left at 8 a.m. So then I was like, man, now I have to figure out if I'm going to leave again at 2 a.m. and then drive to Buffalo. I'm driving all night, and then I got to park the car at the airport. And so the cost of parking at the airport for the week was about $112 US. And then I found that there's a couple of hotels around the airport. One being, I think it was called the Buffalo Airport Hotel. I was able to stay at the Buffalo Airport Hotel and leave the car there. They have parking lots that it's called Park and Fly in the US. We have a version of it here as well at the airport, but you don't get a hotel, you don't get a room out of it. You just park in your car. But the Buffalo Airport Hotel offers parking for the week and an overnight stay, and they'll shuttle you to the airport, and then they'll pick you up when you come back for $149 US. So to me, it was a no-brainer. I can leave significantly earlier the night before, go and have a relaxing stay, relatively overnight, leave my car there at the hotel parking lot where they're looking after it, and then get a ride to the airport and then get picked up for $149 versus, $112 just leaving my car at the airport and then trying to figure out all this other travel. So no brainer. Now, I said Buffalo Airport. That's the one we ended up picking. There's a couple of other ones there that have a similar type of arrangement or deal. And I really don't have too many complaints about the airport or the experience with Buffalo Airport Hotel in terms of the room and getting there. Look, I know this. It's near an airport and there's a high turnover, so I'm not staying at a resort. It's functional. It got us through the night. It's clean enough to get us through the night. They shuttled us to the airport, and they certainly did pick us up. Now, the going was a lot easier than the coming back, relatively speaking. When you get to the airport, the shuttle driver hands you a card, and they say, "Hey, when you get back, just dial this number, and we'll come back and pick you up." Now, when we left, there was only 4 of us. When we came back, there was 30. And so they weren't quite as coordinated in terms of bringing the groups back, and there was a little bit of comedy on the ride back with the driver and some of the conversation. But at the end of the day, our drive back, our wait from the airport was maybe 10, 15 minutes, and the hotel is only 5 minutes away. So super convenient. So my recommendation is when you're planning this, if you're looking for a direct flight, and certainly this applies to folks in the Greater Toronto area, maybe Ontario, maybe the surrounding areas. If you're coming from a different part of the United States or other parts of the world, I know it doesn't apply to you, but in principle, in theory, you might be able to apply some of the knowledge and look at different ways and opportunities to travel and get to your destination of Universal Studios in Orlando. For this purpose, I got the price I wanted, I got the travel arrangements that I wanted, I got the convenience that I wanted as well. And so my recommendation would be definitely look at flying out of Buffalo, look at utilizing the Buffalo Airport Hotel and its shuttle services. So that's the getting to there. Now, I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the experience in Orlando.
All right, before we get into more Orlando Universal Studios reviews and talk, let's take a little music break. Let's keep up with the summer mood. I've got a new song from Kelly Monroe called Party. Now, if you go back in our archives here on the Monthly Social, Kelly was a special guest here, and we have some of her album music as well as some in-depth conversations where you can get to know her. But right now, let's keep the mood going with her new song. Here's Kelly Monroe and Party.
Party till the sun up, good vibes, doing what we wanna. Get up, get down, dip in holy water. Turn the music louder, from Paris to LA, New York to Japan. Ain't no telling where this party goes, find out when I land. Flashing lights lights. Paparazzi, snapping pics for the gram. Blogs go crazy when I step out, writing about who I'm with, don't know who I am. I stay breezy, yeah, I go crazy. Life ain't easy, no, it ain't fair. That's why we party like it's the 90s, living it up like we just don't care. Living it up like we just don't care. Living it up like we just don't care. Let us party like the 90s, I can free my soul. If you want it, we can make it, I'm just in my zone. We can pour it up, double shot. Feeling hot, it never stop, lose control.
That is Kelly Monroe with her new single, Party. And for sure, we're going to keep the party going. I will have Kelly's information in the podcast show notes so that you can check out her new song. But for now, let's get back to our Universal Studios review.
All right. So now that I've got the travel mostly out of the way, and hats off. I don't know if I said it. Hats off to JetBlue. Fantastic overall airline experience. What I just finished talking about, and I would recommend JetBlue. The overall, it was a positive flying experience. So now we get to the airport. We land in Orlando and we have to navigate to go pick up the one checked bag that we have, which, hey, there's no story there. I got the checked bag. It just took a really long time to get the checked bag. It was probably about a half hour before it came on the conveyor, as they often do. But hey, it wasn't broken. It wasn't broken into. I have no complaints about that. Just the length of time and navigating your way through the Orlando airport, which it wasn't a busy airport. I mean, not by comparison to what I've experienced at Pearson by any means. So that part of it was okay. Now, the one challenge I did have was that booking through Universal Studios, I just figured, look, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to rent a car. I don't want to drive. I just want somebody to take care of me on this vacation. And so we got the shuttle. I arranged for the hotel shuttle to pick us up at the airport and bring us back. And wonderful. The hotel, the Universal Studios, sends you this great email, and they say, hey, when you get there, turn left, turn right, take the elevator down, take this tram, follow get on the tram. It'll take you to Terminal A and B, and just an elaborate email about how to get to the shuttle. And so, scratching our head, we're thinking, well, how do you get to the tram? Because we're trying to follow this thing. And we start asking questions. And one of the attendants there says, oh, no, just go down to the main floor and, they'll direct you. Okay, go down to the main floor. And there's a shuttle station there, but it doesn't have the name of the shuttle for the hotel, like for Universal. It's got Disney plastered all over it. So I'm thinking, that can't be the right one. But it ends up being the right one. So they have my name. They've got my reservation. Yep, the shuttle is coming. I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for asking questions and the attendees, because I'm still trying to figure out the instructions I got in email. It's going to send me over to Terminal A and B, whereas right now I'm in Terminal C and I have to take some train or something to get there. So after some time, the shuttle does arrive and successfully gets us to Universal Studios. So, and I say Universal Studios, it gets us to our resort. And it gets us to our resort and drops us off, and we get our suitcases. And, by the way, as I'm on this bus, I realized it looks like paradise out there. The sun is shining. There's palm trees. The skies are blue. It's just beautiful, And we get to the resort where we're staying. I ended up staying at, I believe it was the Loews Royal Pacific Resort, and it's a Hawaiian themed resort. And I've been to Hawaii and I missed Hawaii. And I thought, hey, Florida and Hawaii, 2 for 1. I'm in. Let's try it. Let's give it a shot. So we get there. Bus driver, gives us our suitcases, and we start walking through. There's a little bridge, beautiful stuff on both sides of us. just palm trees and lush green, and it's hot. So if I didn't say it's hot, you're going to hear me say it was hot many, many times. Anyways, we get through the main doors, and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. Now they had said, look, check-in isn't till 4. But if your room's ready earlier, they'll make arrangements and they'll get a hold of you, etc. So I'm like, hey, this is great. Let me give it a shot. So we walk in. Wow, there is a lineup. Like, there's a lot of people checking in. So I'm thinking this is going to take us a while. And I think it was already by the time from the flights to the airport to the shuttle to the resort, we were approaching 12:30, 1 o'clock. So you're trying to make your way around. There is a concierge, but everybody looks really busy. And so we just wait. We wait in line. And as we're waiting in line, the hotel staff come by and they're like, oh, here, welcome to the resort. Here's a lei. And everybody gets their own color lei. And you start to feel like you're somewhere special, and it's kind of neat. And whatever, we patiently, everybody's being patient in line. We get to the counter eventually, and they say to us, yeah, your room's not ready. We don't, but if you give us your number, we'll text you, and we'll contact you when it is ready. Okay, great. Well, what do we do in the meantime? And so there's a luggage service where you can leave your luggage, and when things are ready, you'll be able to take they'll take your luggage to your room. Thought, hey, that sounds pretty cool. What do we do in the meantime? So our park tickets don't kick in until the following day. And, we figured, well, let's go get a bite to eat. There was a couple of places we had scoped out, and we thought there's a place called City Walk, and City Walk is sort of the hub. You take a water taxi to City Walk, and then from City Walk, you can walk to the Universal Studios theme park or the Islands of Adventure. To get to Volcano Bay, you have to take a shuttle. But we thought, you know what? We wanted to try the Hot Dog Hall of Fame. And so we thought, let's go do that. We'll check out City Walk. We'll grab a quick bite. By that time, we'll take the taxi back, and, maybe our room will be ready. Which then leads me to food reviews. Now, I've got about 8 different food reviews of the places that we ate at when we were in Orlando. And those are over on guidoperino.com/blog. So they're blogged reviews. And when you go and look there, each of the places, I've rated them on quality, on service, on cleanliness, on environment, value for your money, and then an overall rating. There's a star rating. I also give it a bit of a review, a little bit of the story about what happened or what may not have happened. So if you go to guidoperino.com/blog, you will see several of the restaurant reviews, as well as you'll see the hotel review, Universal review, JetBlue review, and a whole bunch of others. Again, just for your convenience if you're planning to do this. So anyways, we end up going to the Hot Dog Hall of Fame and thought to ourselves, let's go grab a quick bite, and then we'll make our way back to our resort. This was probably the worst eating experience, although there's another place that came a close second, but this was the worst for different reasons. This was the worst overall experience that we may have had our entire time. And I'm glad that we got it out of the way, because I think that slowly things got, progressively better as we spent time there. But I just don't, this place, City Walk, Hot Dog Hall of Fame. And I think the article I put up was, is it the Hall of Fame or Hall of Shame? And the overall rating is not even a half a star. It's 0.3 really. Zero value for money. It was not clean. The service was not good. The quality was absolutely horrible. And so, picture this, it's Saturday at 2:30 p.m. And in a hub that serves these 2 great theme parks, and they run out of certain hot dogs. And it's just a bit of a head scratcher. Now, the other thing that kind of broke me on this was that it was around $50 US, And what we ended up getting were 2 hot dogs and 2 French fries. And one of the hot dogs was a foot long, just through some misunderstanding. We thought we were getting 2 foot longs, and we weren't. The other one was a very smallish hot dog, colorful looking. It had, colorful relish and other toppings and whatnot. But, I think at one point I went to pick up the order because it was seating outdoor. It was really hot. The tables were not clean. But I go pick up the order and I look down and I say to the fellow, I say, where's the rest of it? And he actually laughs. He looks at me and he laughs and he goes, that's it. And I said, wasn't it supposed to be a foot long? Oh no, these ones aren't a foot long. The other one is a foot long, the regular one, but these are not. And so when I talked to the other guy, and then I thought to myself, we're in paradise. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to move on. Because one of the things I promised myself was I'm going to go to paradise and it's going to be hot. It's going to be beautiful. I'm not going to, focus on these little things. I'll just deal with it. So we ate it. The hot dogs didn't, they didn't taste great. They didn't even taste cooked or very cooked in any kind of way. If you're into a cooked hot dog, I guess some people eat them raw, I think. The fries that came with it, I think, there were 10 string of fries in one and 15 to 20 strings in the other. So it started out bad. The food experience started out bad. I don't recommend this place, but hey, go over to guidoprano.com/blog and you can read, the details that I have on that experience. We end up going, we checked out a few other places. We saw some restaurants and thought, oh, this is kind of cool. Now we realized at this point, because of the time in the day, we had originally had some reservations at the Hard Rock Cafe that night. We weren't going to make it. We were not going to make those reservations because we didn't have our room. We didn't have our luggage. We had just eaten. We still had to wait for some of the groceries that we had ordered to come to our room because I decided, and one of the recommendations here is this. I knew for the length of time that we were going to be there, we were not going to eat at restaurants 3 times a day. And we have certain food and expectations in the morning and whatnot and things that we're accustomed to, if you will. So I used an Instacart and we had some groceries delivered to us that we would consume throughout the week that we were going to spend there. So we weren't going to have time. So I had to cancel the Hard Rock Cafe reservations. And we made, different reservations, which were with NBC Sports Grill and Brew, which ended up being our second worst food experience. So, hey, I'm getting those all out of the way really fast. But I'll talk about that in a bit. So we make our way back to the hotel. And we're kind of sitting around and we're looking at some shops. And then I said, you know what? Let's just go ask. Let's go ask if the room is ready. It's already 4:00, past 4:00. Let's just go ask. And so we go there and lo and behold, the room had been ready for a while now, but nobody texted us. We never got a text that said, hey, your room is ready. Now, the person, the attendant that served us at the counter when we checked in, she also wasn't the most talkative, nor the most informative host, if you will. So I'm not surprised in retrospect that we didn't get a text that our room was ready, but our room was ready. And so, knowing that, great. Hey, let's go get our luggage. Well, they won't give us our luggage. They say, no, you can't have your luggage back. We are a full service hotel. Now, if you don't know what a full service hotel means, is that they would like to provide service to you. So they bring your suitcases to your room. And when they bring your suitcases to your room, much like they bring other things to your room because they're considered a full service hotel, there is an expectation that you will pay for that full service above and beyond whatever you've paid for in your, resort fees already. So anyways, whatever the case is, I said, here's our ticket. Can you bring us our luggage? So we go upstairs and we're kind of waiting for our luggage. And in the meantime, I put in the Instacart order. So the other thing that was really interesting was that on check-in, you would think, a couple of things here. You would think that one, they're going to give you a map. like a map that you can understand that either helps you navigate around the resort, and then a map for the parks that you're going to go visit, you know, like a Universal Studios map or an Islands of Adventure map or a Volcano Bay map. These maps were like, they were rare. They were gold. They didn't exist in our, you know, as we got there. They just didn't exist. And, oh yeah, well, you know, this is what you do. And you'd get a description. And I thought, geez, it would be nice if I had a map. Well, just download the app. And you try to download the app, but it's on your phone, and you know, it's cartoonish and you don't quite get the feel for where you're going to walk. And if you've never been there. So look, man, get some maps for your guests and hand them out when they first get there. It'll help them. So whoever, if you're at Universal Studios, whatever resort you're at, get some maps that people can read. Okay. Maps. They help people out. Okay. That part of the rant is over. Second part was, they hand us our room keys, and our room keys are these little plastic cards. They look like a pass card, and then they're the keys to your room. You swipe them on the door, you open your door to your room, you go in. They are also your speed passes for when you go on rides. So you have to show these cards that, you know, you're at a premier resort and you have speed pass, which I recommend. Speed pass, fantastic, worked out in many, many ways. So they give us these things, you know, and they're kind of cute. They got Universal themes on each card that's different. And the lady, there's a stack of lanyards and you know, on a pedestal that's on her desk, and she kind of moves that over with a little plastic thing. And then she hands us these paper park passes. And I'm thinking to myself, look, I've been to Disney. I'm thinking to myself, she's going to probably get us to pick one of these lanyards here, you know, with the little plastic thing. We'll probably put it all there. Nice little perk, right? No, she just moves that thing over, puts it in front of us. And we're kind of looking at her, and she's looking at us, and she hands us the paper tickets, and she hands us our cards. And I'm kind of like, okay, well, thank you. And she's like, you're welcome. And we're looking at each other, and I'm thinking, thank you. Right? Anyways, they don't give you the lanyards. If you want the lanyards, it's going to cost you $20 for the lanyard. And I don't know, sometimes it's $5, sometimes it's $10 for the little plastic thing that the lanyard clips on. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I spent X amount of money at this resort, and they're not going to give me a lanyard with the little Universal, you know, designs on it and stuff to put the paper ticket that they're giving me to have to carry around to get into the parks, and this room key that, you know, is supposed to also be helpful. So I'm thinking, wow, a bit of a cheap move on behalf of the resort and on Universal Studios. I remember going to Disney. They had this beautiful boxed set of wristbands that we got. And you know, the wristbands took care of everything. They charged the room, the speed pass, the fast pass. It just took care of everything. It made it easy, and they were custom, and they were kind of unique. And I just thought, hey, I love it. You know, this is great. Universal doesn't have that. And so right there, I kind of just started putting, you know, Disney just a little bit ahead. Okay, maybe a little bit more than just a little bit ahead than I did Universal, just for those little bits of attention to detail. Okay, attention to detail is important, especially if you're going to a premier resort like the Royal Pacific Resort. Okay, now I'm telling you these things. These little nuances, and it sounds like I'm complaining, and I am a little bit, but overall, I maintain I'm in paradise. So as I'm going through this, I'm going, whatever, don't care right now. Whatever, don't care right now, because I look outside, I see the palm trees, little geckos running around, sun is out. I took a peek in the back. We got the white sand by the lagoon that we're going to swim in. So there's all these beautiful aesthetic things that are going to make me feel really comfortable for the next several days. And I'm putting these little nuances, just throwing them in the back, thinking, yeah, I'll cover them off so that other people who do come here have that awareness and know about them. Now, one of the other perks that you get, alleged perks that you get, is when you're out shopping in the theme parks. And look, you're going to shop, and it's really expensive. The shops are really, really expensive. You know, like t-shirts are $27 to $37 dollars US. So if you're Canadian and you do the conversion at, a dollar to $1.39 per, it gets expensive to shop around, and like little magnets and keychains and all that stuff. It all adds up, right? But one of the perks of being at a premier resort is that when you're out shopping in the theme parks, and Disney did this, and they did it really well too. One of the perks is that you say to the shop, the seller, the retailer, yeah, here's my room number. I'm staying at this resort, and they will have it delivered. Actually, how it really goes is they should say, hey, are you staying with us? Would you like this delivered to your room? Well, nobody, and we went into a lot of shops, nobody ever asked us, are you staying with us? Would you like this sent to your room? Okay. One time I say to the retail attendee, I say, hey, you know what? We're out, we're still not done. Can I have this sent to the room? Oh yeah, absolutely. Just as long as we'll do this anytime, as long as it's not the day before you check out. Makes sense because they deliver the next day. If it's the day before you check out and you checked out, you're not going to be there to receive your product. And what if there's a delay? No problem. Makes sense. So she kind of takes care of things for me, and that purchase goes off. And I think, hey, great. I had to ask, but the service was there and it worked. But I didn't like that they didn't kind of offer it to you, that you kind of had to ask, because if you didn't know about it, then you wouldn't ask, you'd be carrying around all these bags. Now, a little bit later, we go back to that shop, because sometimes you see something, you say, I don't know if I want it. Maybe I'll see something else. And anyways, go back to that shop and say, yeah, we want something else. Different attendee at the same shop. And we say to the attendee, we say, oh yeah, can you please have this sent to our room? This is our where we're staying. And the attendee looks at us and says, no, I'm sorry, I can't. And I said, sorry, you can't? Yeah, we don't do that after 5 p.m. So I look at my watch and I think to myself, it's not 5 p.m. So what gives, right? Like, and then, somebody who we were with they said in unison, it's 3:15 or whatever the time was. It was a long time before 5 p.m. And so then the attendee looks at us and says, all right, I guess I have to then. I'm thinking to myself, wow, like it is a perk that we're supposed to have, but holy jumping, try not to do us any favors here. Like she just there was no interest in her wanting to, do the paperwork or staple the bag together and send it with the other products to our hotel. So couple of little nuances there. Now, I'm going to get to food reviews too here in a second, but sticking with the Loews Pacific Royal Pacific Resort that we stayed at, the other little bug that or nuance that we had was, it's hot, and they give you a little dorm refrigerator, which is really a half-size refrigerator. I'm going to put pictures of this stuff up all on the links that I'm going to share with you, so you have access to it. And I was hoping for a bigger refrigerator, and I'll tell you the microwave story too. So I was hoping for a bigger refrigerator, but whatever, we didn't. It was a half refrigerator, enough to put our stuff in there, the little grocery thing that we were going to do. But I wish we had a little bit more room. But we didn't have ice. So I thought, well, no problem. I'll just walk down the hall and there's an ice room, and I go to the ice room and there's no ice in the ice machine. And then, you look around and there's a sign on the door that says, oh, hey, we apologize. Please call the desk for ice. Thinking, oh man, there's no ice on my floor. There's no ice on my floor. So I don't know why there was no ice on my floor, but there was no ice on the floor. So you have to call down to concierge, and then you kind of have to wait, and they'll bring you a bag of ice. And remember, this is a full service hotel. And so they're bringing you stuff to your room. And I'm thinking, I'm capable of getting my own ice just down the room. And then I don't have to wait 20 minutes to get the ice. But sometimes it was a little longer than other times. But whatever. Now, I said I wanted to mention the microwave. And I thought it's always nice to have that little microwave. If you want to pop some popcorn or put a little treat in there, like at the end of the night, it's kind of a nice to have. And so before we got to the resort, I called and said, hey, do I have a microwave in our room? Oh, you don't, sir, but we can provide one. I'm like, oh, well, that sounds great. How do I make that happen? Well, it's $15. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, $15 from there for a week, nothing, just throw a microwave in there per day, sir, $15 per day. And I'm thinking, I sound like Seinfeld here. I don't want to buy the microwave. I just want to use the microwave for a few days, right? I don't want to buy it, right? At $15 a day for 6 days, I could buy a microwave. Anyways, I say, you know what? Forget it. I don't need the microwave. I'm not going to give you $15. I don't even know what the microwave looks like. I don't trust it. So forget the microwave. Now, overall, Royal Pacific Resort, there are some beautiful parts of that resort. The lagoon, the white sand, the Bula Bar. I talk about the Bula Bar as well. It's going to be one of my reviews for food and drinks, and it's poolside, beautiful. The island's dining room, classy, clean, class act. I'll talk about that as well in one of my reviews. Loved it. Fantastic. The shops, the entranceway is beautiful. The rooms seem a little bit older. Some of them seem, have that a little bit renovated. They do have a Hawaiian theme or whatever. The bathrooms were starting to show a little bit of their age. The beds and the mattresses, they were so-so. They weren't that great. I was expecting something a little bit more comfortable. But again, I'm in paradise. I keep saying I'm in paradise. So things that would normally bother me probably didn't bother me as much because I was in paradise. I was enjoying the hot weather and everything that it was. So, look, overall, from a Universal Studios Royal Pacific, yeah, look, I'm going to list, I'll have it in one of the articles. There's about, 8 to 10 things that I thought, I wish these things were better. But there's also many things that were fantastic, and I'll list those out. And it was a really good experience. Checkout was really easy. Was able to check out, pack your suitcases and just go. They do the final billing. Now, I say they do the final billing. So a few days after I get back, you're looking online and checking all your purchases and things like that. And on the last day, I see this purchase for, $1,686.07 US. And I'm staring at it and I'm thinking to myself, I don't think we ordered that much ice. We didn't have any room service. We had, tableside service when we went to some of the places in the resort, but, and some of those got charged to the room, but those were separate charges. And I had all the receipts for that. So I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I don't know what this is. So I better call them. And, I called them, and I finally, eventually, after all the automated, redirections and whatnot, get to a human being. And I explain to the human being, this is what's happening. And they say, oh, no, that shouldn't be right. Let me take care of that for you. And so, they end up contacting the resort where we stayed. And so the lady comes back and says, oh, it'll be all cleared up. Don't worry about it. It'll all be cleared up. That pending charge is going to be removed. It was an error. I think at one point she says, it was a hold on the room, just in case. And I thought to myself, no, the hold on the room was 1 cent, which is what they do when you first check in. So somebody had made an ugly $1,600 pending charge mistake there. So now that I've done that, I'm going to talk about 2 more things. And when I talk about those 2 more things, it's this. I want to talk about gratuity, and I want to talk about the island's dining room breakfast. So the gratuity, when you order from the resort, they have an app. So you're sitting outside, and there's a little QR code that you can scan with your phone. It opens the app, you put in your order, and they'll bring it to you, and it gets either charged to your room, or you can put it on your Visa or MasterCard or whatever you have. So I go through this the first time, and it says, service charge, et cetera. And there's an automated service charge. But I just thought, okay, they're just processing this. So it's some sort of resort service charge. What that actually is they apply an automatic 18% gratuity to every order. You can walk up to their bar and order, and you're still going to pay 18% gratuity, automated, no matter what. Okay. Now, what confuses me is that on the next screen, and the first time I didn't understand this, on the next screen, it says tip. So I'm thinking, oh, it must not have applied that tip. Must not have applied it. So I think, well, I want to leave a tip, right? Because they're providing some decent service, so I better leave a tip. And so I apply a tip. And what happens is when my wife comes back and I tell her, yeah, I've ordered, and she looks at me, she goes, you know that they have auto gratuity? And I said, yeah, but it told me I had to provide a tip, so maybe it didn't. So she's like, did you add more? I'm thinking with the tone and the look, I did, and maybe I shouldn't have. So I ended up leaving them well over 30% in gratuity because it wasn't clear that the service charge on the previous screen was actually that automated 18% gratuity. So be careful when you're ordering from your resort and they have auto gratuity enabled. They may disguise it as resort charge, service charge. But if you read some of the literature, it actually says that it's an auto gratuity. Okay. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and this will be the last thing, and then we'll pause here, and then I'll talk about the theme parks and some of the restaurant experiences. Okay. And it's this: we did have a bit of a challenging experience with our room service at one point, where the room hadn't got cleaned and it had been a few days. And, but the few days I didn't bother anybody. I wasn't asking for extra towels. I said, I don't need anybody to make my bed for the first few days, but we did reach a point where I thought, okay, I need some sheets and I need some towels and tissues and toilet paper and all those wonderful things that, you would use in your room. So, I put, the sign that says, hey, please clean my room. Nobody came while we were out. So I, went down and I said to the concierge, you know what? Can I get some towels and a few things? Nobody cleaned my room. Oh yeah, no, listen, are you going out? Yep. We'll make sure somebody comes and cleans it. We apologize. Okay, no problem. So we head out, come back, room isn't cleaned. So the missus calls down and says, hey, somebody's supposed to come clean our room and nobody came. Oh, we apologize. Are you going out? Yes, we are. Okay, we're going to make sure somebody comes and cleans the room. All right, no problem. Thank you. Okay, great. Oh, can you also ask them to tell them to please bring some ice as well? Yeah, no problem. We'll leave you some ice too. We go out, we come back. Room's not clean. No towels, no tissues, no toilet paper. So I'm like, all right, you know what? No problem. Let me just go get the stuff. So I go back downstairs and I go to the concierge, and the same attendee that was there earlier on in the day is still there. And I say to her, hi, I don't know if you remember me. She says, yes, I do. And I said, great. She goes, everything okay? I said, well, nobody's come to tidy up the room, and I still don't have, towels and all these things that I need. And she's like, oh, that shouldn't be the case. And I said, listen, no, I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I'm not even angry. Can you get me the stuff? Can you give me the towels? And can you give me some ice? And can you give me the things that I need? And I'll just take it, and it's good. We don't have to bother anybody. Don't get anybody in trouble. I'm okay. No. I'll be right back, sir. A few minutes go by. She comes out, and this nice gentleman comes out, and he says, I would like to apologize. It's not the way we do things around here. And I said, you know what? I think his name was Wayne. I said, Wayne, no big deal. Look, I didn't come down because I wanted to get somebody in trouble. I just came down so I could get these things. Don't worry about it. I'm sure they'll get to it tomorrow. We'll put the sign out. Everything's cool. I just need a few things. And if you can help me get those, we're going to send those up to your room right away. I'm like, no, Wayne, if you just give them to me, I'm okay with taking them. No, we'll make sure. I will personally make sure. And he goes, please let me give you a free breakfast. And I said, no, you know what? It's not necessary. I'm okay. And I said, and please, I don't want anybody to get in trouble. If they missed the room or something, I'm not here again. I just want the stuff. No, he says to me, no. Listen, you're really nice, sir. We don't get people, a lot of people like you coming to talk to us and being so patient and kind. And we hear you don't want anybody to get in trouble. Nobody's going to get in trouble, but please let me do something nice in return for you, because this whole time you really haven't complained, and it's rare and we appreciate it. And I thought, okay, I said, you know what? I'll take it, but please don't get anybody in trouble. Okay, no problem. So sure enough, within minutes, the towels come, everything's coming in, fantastic. Next day, the room's going to get clean. We get the breakfast, free breakfast at the Islands dining room at the Loews Royal Pacific. And it was awesome. We ended up going to that breakfast. It wasn't the next day we went, it was the day after. What an amazing, it was a breakfast buffet style, but fantastic service like, usually you go to a buffet, the waiter or waitress, pours you something to drink, and then you kind of don't see them until they clear your dishes away, and you think, oh, I know they're around here somewhere. They clear my dishes whenever I leave. Now, I didn't overeat. Trust me, I didn't overeat. But the buffet was a quality buffet. The food was phenomenal. The quality of the food, phenomenal. I even had smoked salmon that morning for breakfast. It was just perfect. And the service was good, and the food was really good. The environment was fantastic. I will review it on the blog site as well. Okay. I think that's it for the resort part and some tips. Hopefully you're able to extract some tips from our experiences there, and you get a little bit of insight in terms of how the resort went. So I'm going to pause there for a moment, and I'll be back, and we'll talk theme parks and some restaurant experiences.
Now, before we do that, let's hear from one of our friends of the podcast, Lee's Fine Cars.
Whether it's buying a new car or a quick oil change, Lee's Fine Cars and Service Center has got you covered. Proudly serving the GTA for over 30 years as your one-stop automotive source for sales, service, and bodywork. Come visit us at 87 Green Lane, conveniently located just south of Bayview and 407, or online at leesfinecars.com.
Okay, continuing our third installment here, reviewing Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. And so we've talked about travel, which is JetBlue, and the Buffalo Airport and Orlando Airport. We've talked about the Royal Pacific Resort and some of the things that I learned about checking in and dealing with folks there, and some of the perks, some of the non-perks, etc. And now I want to talk a little bit about the different theme parks and some of the experiences there, as well as some of the restaurants. Now, at the time that I'm recording this, I'm also doing a set of blog entries so that you can read about these different experiences. And those might provide some additional detail, because I'm paraphrasing and I'm talking here, roughly talking to myself right now until you listen to it. But so those will be over on guidoperino.com/blog. And I'll put some links in the podcast notes as well, so you can kind of get over there. So now, if you were listening to the earlier segment, I talked about how you take water taxis, which are really cool. The water taxis take you from your resort over to City Walk if you're staying on the resort. And it's great. You have to go through a little security thing. You take everything out of your pockets before you get on the boat. It, drives you to City Walk, and then from City Walk, you can get to Islands of Adventure, or you can get to Universal Studios. If you want to go to Volcano Bay, from where we were, you had to take a shuttle bus. I think it's different if you stay on there is a resort, I think, where you could stay, and it's closer to Volcano Bay. Now, if you're into water, you like water rides and that, Volcano Bay is the place you want to be. It's a fantastic water theme park. Just phenomenal, beautiful, wave pool, dead drops, slides, Fearless River, Lazy River. I'll talk about that in a second. If you want to do the themes like the Harry Potters and the Dr. Seuss's and the Marvel and all that, you want to go Universal Studios, you want to go to Islands of Adventure. I do recommend that if you're going to go on a lot of rides, if you're at a premier resort, you usually get the fast pass with your package usually. Otherwise, you could purchase a fast pass. It's worth the fast pass. Most times, at a minimum, shaved off half the amount of time than the regular lineups would take you. So we did what was it called? It was called Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. We did that, and fast pass. It took from 110-minute wait, to a 35-minute wait in terms of by the time you got to the actual ride. So that seemed to be the normal experience using the fast pass. And you're kind of walking by, and a part of me, I felt a little bit bad, right? Because you're kind of walking by and you're going past hundreds of people in the other line, hundreds. And so it was worth it. It helped us get through our day, and it helped us get through our day the way that we structured our days too, because it was really hot, as you would expect. It was really hot in Orlando. And so we broke up our days. We broke up our days like this. We would go to one of the theme parks in the morning, push it to whatever we felt comfortable, somewhere between 12 and 1:30, maybe at the latest. And then we'd go back to our resort hotel, find a place to have lunch, cool down, rest. And then we would probably go back out around 2:00 to either the same park or a different part of the park, or a different, like one of the other parks. And we do that till, let's say, 5:30, go back, get refreshed, find a place to eat dinner, and either do a little bit more park or end up back at the resort and the lagoon. And I've talked about Royal Pacific Resort, beautiful lagoon, beautiful pool area, really warm water, palm trees all over the place above you, service right to your beach chair, white sand beaches, etc. So Universal Studios was the first park that we went to in the morning of our first day. And it was a beeline to, I'm saying beeline. The first thing we all wanted to see was the Harry Potter world, of course. And when you walk through the wall, I in my earlier comments, I've said Universal quite isn't what Disney is, because Disney just still has this bit of magic to it, just this magical thing to it. And you walk through the walls into the Harry Potter world, and it was you felt magic. You look around and you thought you were in the movies. You see all the landmarks and the buildings and just the environment and the dragon and, the bank. And it was a moment where we all stood and just looked around and went, wow, this is really cool. And I don't know if that feeling wore off. It wasn't the exact same, but every time we walked through that wall and kind of looked around, you still would look around and go, wow, this is awesome, right? And that was at Universal. Great park, expensive. Of course, there's, all the vendors, you get buy the wands. But there's a lot to do. There are a lot of shops to go in. Butterbeer was the big thing as well. The one day the first place we ate at was the Leaky Cauldron. We had breakfast there one morning, and then the other morning we ate at the Three Broomsticks. And even that experience was phenomenal. If you go to guidoperino.com/blog and you go to my review on Leaky Cauldron and Three Broomsticks, they basically serve the exact same food, the exact same menus. And so I rated them together. And overall, they got 4.5 stars, quality 4.5, service 4, cleanliness 5, environment 5, value for money 4.5, overall 4.6, which 4.5 stars. But you feel like you're in the actual movie. The food was really good. For that type of food, the food was really good. You almost feel like you're in the movies. And so that was a really good, really fun restaurant experience. You check out the article on guidoperino.com/blog. The Islands of Adventure, and I'm not doing this justice because Universal Studios still has so many other things that there's the Jaws. That I didn't even cover the Simpsons. There's the Simpsons. I was in awe. Krusty Burger, Springfield's, bad service but food perfection. Krusty Land, and you go on the rides there, fantastic ride as well. And the big debate going into that was, am I going for the Krusty Burger or am I going for the Ribwich? Well, did I toss a coin? I went for the Ribwich. I went for the Ribwich because there's just those episodes of Homer, and he's drooling all over himself in the Ribwich. And anyways, I can't tell you that there's, other than the service, I can't tell you there's too much bad about eating at the Krusty Burger, at the suite of Simpson restaurants. I say Krusty Burger, but there's really a suite of restaurants there. There's Cletus's Chicken Shack. There's Moe's. There's Luigi's Pizza, Lisa's Tea House of Horror. It's just a really cool setting if you like The Simpsons. Overall, I gave that Krusty Burger and Suite of Restaurants 4 stars. Quality was a 5. Service was a 1. Cleanliness 4.5. Environment was 4.5. Value for money was a 5. Decent price for all the food that we got. If you can look past the service, and I get into the different nuances of service and why the service was so bad and what happened on guidoprano.com/blog. But part of me felt like if I had gotten too good of a service, it wouldn't quite feel like Springfield. So maybe it was intentional. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that maybe the service was so bad so that they could, because it was something I would expect going to Springfield, something that, you'd expect going to a restaurant and having a certain type of service. But in Springfield, maybe that's what it was like. And if that's what they were trying to replicate, I apologize. It works. But overall, the service was bad. And you can read about that. But it still made for a good experience. I didn't go back, could have gone back. I didn't end up having the Krusty Burger. Someone in the family had a Krusty Burger and they loved it too. But I didn't want, after I had the Ribwich and I loved it so much, I didn't want to spoil the experience. And so I didn't end up having that. And we didn't end up going back, but it was awesome. Now, Islands of Adventure, boy, that's the other side. There's a more Harry Potter stuff there at Hogsmeade. And that was a great experience. There we ate at the Three Broomsticks restaurant, same breakfast as the Leaky Cauldron. Wonderful experience. Broomsticks was probably a little less, we thought it would be, a greater experience than Leaky Cauldron, but it seemed a little busier, a little bit more congested, didn't quite have the same vibe as Leaky Cauldron. And I don't know if it was because we had already been to Leaky Cauldron, but it was still good. I say that and it was still good. We really enjoyed it a whole bunch. And I would recommend either one of those restaurants, although it seemed like we preferred Leaky Cauldron. Now, we got there early. And one of the perks, I guess, of having the Premier Resort is sometimes they'll open the park an hour before everybody else and let you in. Now, in this scenario, the Islands of Adventure, there wasn't that. Everybody kind of got in at the same time. Volcano Bay, we did have some early entry, but Islands of Adventure, we didn't. Nevertheless, we made it to Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. And we're walking, and there's people running past us because they want to get there. Because, like I said, it reaches 110, 120, two-hour waits. And I don't want to wait 2 hours. So people are running past us. And I'm at the point where it's, 9 in, it's 32 degrees. I'm already sweating, just standing there. I'm not going to run to Hagrid's. But at the end of the day, we made it and it wasn't a bad wait for us. We had the fast pass and it wasn't a bad wait. That ride was awesome. I'm not a big roller coaster person, but that ride was awesome. I was on the motorcycle. The force of the ride, pulls you right down onto the motorcycle, like you're leaning forward. And it's got a stop and go, a little bit of a sore upper and middle back, but overall, really fun. It goes backwards. At one point, you also drops into a different track, and that was unexpected. But I joke around. I have a picture somewhere where my glasses pressed so far up against my eyes. I have a different pair of glasses on tonight, but the other ones, that my eyeball was almost touching the glass, and it created a little bit of a smudge on the glasses from that experience. But that was cool. And then the train ride, Hogwarts Express between Islands of Adventure and Universal Studios, that was cool. We did it once from Universal to Islands. We didn't do it again. A little stuffy, not a lot of air conditioning. You don't get to look on the outside. The entire experience is projected on the inside of the train, but the train is actually moving between the two parks. So that was cool. Also at Islands of Adventure, there's Marvel, Dr. Seuss, Those were all kind of cool things. There's a Velociraptor ride. Didn't do Velociraptor ride. Did some Dr. Seuss stuff just because we love Dr. Seuss. And that was kind of cool. Went on Popeye and Bluto's Balge Rat barges. And that was awesome. So there's a little sign that says, you will get wet. I think they should change the sign to, you will get drenched. Okay. We got soaked, like head to toe soaked. It's one of those round things, and I'll do the review on it. One of those round things, and you kind of get in and you put your devices. Thank goodness they had a place to put our phones and things like that, waterproof area right in the center of the boat. The water comes underneath you, onto your feet. It comes over top of you. It comes sideways at you. We couldn't stop laughing because we had so much fun on it. We ended up going a few times, and at that point we were already all soaked. So we said, let's just keep going, and we loved it, and everybody seemed to have a good laugh. Met some really nice people a bunch of times. So if you met me there and you laughed with me on the Popeye barge, Bluto barge, thank you. I had some good laughs with you. It was nice to meet you. So check that out. But I would recommend, if you go, you're not just going to get wet. You're going to get drenched. You're going to get completely drenched from your head down to your toes. So just, have that awareness for that. So overall, Islands of Adventure, that was really cool. Another highlight, I'm just going back and forth, Universal Studios. I got to meet Betty Boop. Got to see some Transformers. The Transformer ride was really cool over at the Universal side as well. I'm probably forgetting things because I'm doing this again before I did the review, but I wanted to kind of let you know. But if you go to the website, you'll have all that. Now, I covered off a couple of places to eat. I've already covered off Hot Dog Hall of Fame. I've already covered off Harry Potter's Leaky, Cauldron, and 3 Broomsticks, Krusty Burger, and Springfield's suite of services. We did, I mentioned earlier, our second worst meal was at NBC Sports Grill and Brew. That was not a fun experience. It was a reservation experience. Overall, they got 1.5 stars. It was not clean. The quality of the food was 2.5. Service was horrible. We had 3 servers come to our table, and you say, well, how can 3 servers and the host still, if they're coming, they just didn't know what was going on. And as nice as they were as people, they just, we didn't have the menus, and it took a long time to order. When I say a long time to order, we were there for 2.5 hours. The table next to us hadn't been cleaned the whole time that we were there. We had reservations, but when we got there, they were really confused about the reservation. They ended up finding some place up on the second floor. Some really not clean things were happening, and you'll have to read the article. If you go to guidoprano.com/blog, you will read the full unclean details of the NBC Sports Grill and Brew. I will never, ever eat there again, nor do I recommend it. And if you go there, you'll understand why. It was bad. And so the value for money, $120 US for 4 people. There was no value for money, and it was a bad place to eat. I don't recommend it. But again, we were in paradise. Now, the best place, my favorite meal that we had was at City Walk. No, not the Hot Dog Hall of Fame and shame. No, not NBC Sports Grill and Brew, but it was Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. They got everything right. They just got everything absolutely 100% right. They got 5 stars in my review. They were just fantastic. The service was right. The engagement was good. The food was fantastic. It was clean. It was our most expensive meal, but it was our best meal and our overall best experience. So look, you're not going to find a meal under $10, and most meals will fall in that $25 US range or more. The drinks were a little on the pricey side, but when you compare it to some of the other places, they give you souvenir cups and glasses, and you can take home stuff. You're in a resort area and you're in a theme park. So relative to that, as pricey as I thought the drinks were, they were great drinks and great presentation and overall fantastic experience. I do review them as well, so you understand all the cool things and what, some of the things that we ate and how good the food is. And there's some pictures there as well. So you can go to guidoprano.com/blog and you can read about that. The other place that I cover off was in Universal Studios, and that was Louie's Italian Restaurant. Now, you got to remember, and as I said to you earlier, and I'll talk about the grocery thing after too as well, because we decided we weren't going to have 3 meals a day at theme park restaurants. Now, Louie's Italian Restaurant, by the way, flanked by a little place called Guido's Gelato or Guido's Ice Cream. They have Italian ice cream right in there. So overall, 4 stars. Service was just as bad as the Krusty Burger and Simpson thing. But if you can overlook the service, it's a cafeteria style restaurant. You go get your food, you put them on a tray, and you go and you kind of sit down. But if you could look past some of the service things that happen, quality overall food was a 5. Really clean place. The environment was really fun. The Italian music playing, lots of space, value for money. The cost for four of us to eat, I think was around $60 US. And that got us, fettuccine Alfredo with chicken and garlic bread, pizza and drinks. And when you put that into perspective of everything else, it was a really good price for the amount of food we got and the quality of food we got. So if you go to the guidoprano.com/blog, you'll read about the service things so that you have that awareness and you'll have an idea of what to expect if you go there. So look, overall, and I'm going to have, right now, there's 6 reviews as I'm recording this, 6 reviews on the website, but I'll have more reviews of other things, including the other resorts and Universal overall that I talked about. But overall, the whole Universal experience was a fantastic experience. You're in Orlando, Florida. It was beautiful weather. It was just before Hurricane Idalia. We missed it by 4 days as we had gotten out of there. The theme parks are great. The theme parks are really clean, probably just as clean as Disney. And I don't know how they do that. I don't know who cleans during the day, but somebody's cleaning. I never see cleaners, but it's always clean. So I really like that part of it. I didn't like some of the communication from the resorts and Universal itself. The parks were closing an hour earlier than we expected because of they were getting ready for Halloween already. They have a lot of these other little things at the different hotels and resorts, little food events and all these other little things, but they do cost a considerable amount of money. So if you're going there just to do the theme parks and enjoy some of the food and that stuff, it's worth your while to do some of that planning ahead of time by watching shows like this and looking at videos and understanding where you want to go and when you want to go and how you want to do it. Overall, it was great. It wasn't Disney. Disney's still just magical, but it was a really good, fun place to go. And maybe, I don't know if it's, hey, we didn't go anywhere for 3 years because of the pandemic and all that other stuff, but it was a really fun place to go. And I would recommend overall Universal Studios. Just when you go, have the expectation, things are going to go wrong. Food might be bad in some places. It's going to cost money more than you expect in some other places. But balance it all out with all the amazing, fun, great things you're going to see and experience, and enjoy the weather and enjoy the environment of paradise with the palm trees and the sand and the water and the warmth and all the good things that go with that. Now, hopefully you've enjoyed the reviews, and stay tuned. We're going to now switch over and maybe listen to some music or something. So thank you very much. monthlysocial.com and guidoprano.com/blog will have all the information you're looking for in terms of reviews.
All right, it is time for a little music break. So let's go listen to a new song from a new band. In Theory, here is Mike Moster and Tony Cavino with Stain on My Soul. Mike Moster, Tony Cavino, In Theory with Stain on My Soul. You can hear more about the song over on the Path Radio Spotlight. You just go to youtube.com/the The Path Radio Mix. I'll have the link in the show notes. So thank you to the guys for a fantastic song and a great interview. All right, let's get going. We're going to keep talking here on the show. We're going to get into Generation Z.
Okay, for this segment, I wanted to look at what is on Gen Z's mind. And I decided to do that after getting a report from Abacus Data that looked at exploring. First, they started with a political topics in order to understand Gen Z compared to the other generations, being the millennials, Gen X, and the boomers. And then it kind of talks about another report that it suggests, hey, go check out the rest of the work that was done by Oliver Wyman Forum. But first, just using data here in Canada and looking at the intention of the federal vote, So Gen Z is at 32% conservative, 24% liberal, and 26% NDP, which is the highest of all the generations that were measured. You've got the millennials at 40% conservative, 21% liberal, 24% NDP, and then Gen X, who has the highest for the conservatives at 41%, 24% for the liberals, and 17% for the NDP. And then you've got the boomers, who are at 39% for the conservatives, 30% for the liberals, which is the highest for any of the across any of the generations for the liberals, and 14% for the NDP, which is the lowest for any of the generations for the NDP. Now, the Abacus data report goes on to say that, unsurprisingly, but still worth noting, Gen Z and millennials are much more likely to place housing affordability and accessibility in their top 3 issues compared to older generations. Not a surprise. What is surprising is the generational divide on climate change and the environment. Compared to Gen Z, boomers are 7 points more likely to place environment and climate change in their top 3 issues. The full report can be accessed through their blog post, and I'll have that link for you as well, so you could see the full report. I'm going to talk about some of the specifics. Now, look at it, that stat right there it makes complete sense, right? When you look at it and you say, boomers are 7 points more likely to place environment and climate change, and along, in their top 3, because they're at a different place in their lives, right? Gen Z's facing a whole bunch of other different social, political, economical issues, whereas boomers have, some foundation, if you will. Now, looking at global population, right? Because I think that's important when you look at the rest of the statistics. Gen Z makes up 25% of the global population. Not far behind are millennials at 23%, Generation X at 19%, and boomers at 14%. So keep that in mind as we go through some of the statistics. Now, just looking at some general categorizations, the percentage of each generation that does not identify as non-Hispanic white, and this is using US data now. Gen Z's at 48%, millennials at 46%, Gen X at 41%, and boomers at 29%. When it comes to college education, the percentage of each generation enrolled in college at the ages between 18 and 21, Generation Z is at 57%, millennials at 52%, and Generation X at 43%. No number, of course, for the boomers in this one. TikTok usage. And this is kind of interesting because it impacts other stats as we're going to talk about them. The percentage of each generation that follow and buy from TikTok accounts. Generation Z is 42%. Millennials, 28%. Generation X, 16%. And boomers are at 6%. So there's a large portion of the Generation Z on TikTok. And I think that's important when we start looking at the marketing and the economics as well. Now, self-reported mental health issues, the percentage of each generation that self-report struggling with at least one mental health issue in the last 2 years. This takes US and UK data, and Generation Z leads at 65%. Then you have the millennials at 51%, Generation X at 29%, and the boomers at 14%. So some overview type of data there as I start to look at some of the different topics that get covered in this report. Let's look at, if I can, I think I want to start with spirituality. I think that was the first one that I wanted to look at. Right. So when it comes to Generation Z, they are the least religious generation of the ones that we're comparing to. They are, it's noted that they are 29% less likely than older generations to identify with Christianity, 25% less likely to believe that organized religion fosters a sense of community. And it may have to do with some of the scandals in the churches and that, have been in the news over the last several years, right? But Having said that, there is still a spiritual component to their beliefs. So Gen Z, when the question gets asked, I believe in God and or religious deities, sits at 23%. Non-Gen Z sits at 35%. I believe in life after death. Gen Z sits at 23%. And non-Gen Z sits just over 30%, 32%. So they are less likely to believe in common religious doctrine or life after death. Now, when we look at spiritual practices, there's 4 categories here. The first category in this report is I say positive affirmations to myself. Gen Z, 27%. Non-Gen Z, 15%. I believe in the power of manifestation. They sit at almost 20%, whereas non-Gen Z sits at 7%. Now, the difference in that is 138%. So the difference between Gen Z and non-Gen Z when it comes to I believe in the power of manifestation is a difference of 138% for Gen Z. A third one, astrology has helped me better understand myself and others in a meaningful way. Gen Z, 12%, non-Gen Z, 6%. And then the last one, I have a consistent spiritual practice such as chanting or yoga. Gen Z sits at 7%. Non-Gen Z sits at 5%. So a little bit of a difference there when it comes to religion versus spiritual practice. Now, another one that I think we should look at is, and this is really prevalent, if you will, as of late, in the last several years with the pandemic, et cetera. And even with some of the more political events that have happened over the course of the last 5 to 10 years, if you will. And that's how everybody is consuming news. I mean, here, if you're listening to this podcast, is this news? Yeah, it's a form of news. I mean, I'm leveraging different reports. I'm giving you information. It's not daily news, like in terms of, what happened on the transit system or things like that. But how are Gen Zers, Zers, how are they consuming news? And 60% of Gen Z go to social media for information. That's slightly more than the internet and double print or digital newspapers and magazines. 22% of them trust social media highly, yet it's ranked second in platform loyalty. 2 and 3 Gen Zs will favor social media for its content delivery, often at the expense of quality and accuracy. That is a staggering number. 2 in 3 will favor social media for its content delivery at the expense of quality and accuracy. So they're willing to consume, they're willing to look at how they can consume the information, even if it's not quality or accurate. It's a head scratcher. They are 2 times, when it comes to fact checking, they will look for fact checking. Gen Zers trust people like themselves twice as much as mainstream news. And then lastly, they are almost twice as likely as non-Gen Zers to use another source to fact check news. I like, to me, that's staggering when you look at media and news and how information is being presented, and you think back to they make up 25% of the global population, and this is how they're consuming information through social media. There was a bit of a study in terms of where they sit with different forms of media and information. Gen Z, when it comes to the radio, sits at about 12%. Non-Gen Z sits at about 18% in terms of, the different forms. And this is rated against the different forms of how they consume information. Printed news, 10%, non-Gen Z, 20%. Podcasts. Hey, Gen Zers, they sit at 16%. Non-Gen Z sits at 14%. So I'd be curious if you're in the Gen Z category and you're listening to the Monthly Social over here on the monthlysocial.com, if you're a Gen Z and you're one of that 16%. And if you're not, I'd like to know too. It'd be interesting to see if we can, get some of those stats and information here. The internet, 56% is Gen Z, 62% non-Gen Z. YouTube. Hey, YouTube. We're on YouTube too. So Gen Z, 45%. Non-Gen Z, 32%. So that's a big number that folks are going to YouTube for information for, right? And if you go to YouTube /@ the Monthly Social, you'll see some of our content there. And if you're watching this on video, you're consuming it on YouTube. Digital news, 24% non-Gen Z, 19% Gen Z. Newsletters, 10% Gen Z, 14% non-Gen Z. Television. Now, this speaks volumes too. Gen Z, 25%. Non-Gen Z, 46%. Blogs, very close. 8% non-Gen Z, 9% Gen Z. And then social media, 34% non-Gen Z, 57% Gen Z. And those are, the scales I just gave you are most trusted to least trusted. As I kind of went through them. So radio, printed news, podcast, internet, YouTube, digital news, newsletter, TV, blogs, and social media. Now, another category that I wanted to look at. And this was, I mentioned, by the way, before I get to that, I mentioned before, having gone through the pandemic, et cetera, 77% of Gen Z who said they fact check their news believe that at least one COVID-19 related conspiracy theory. So that's another just interesting tidbit as we're kind of going through that. Okay, let's get to, I wanted to cover off we just did news consumption. Let's see if I can get to health and wellness here. So Gen Z are 1.9 times as likely as other generations to struggle with mental health issues. They are 2 times as likely to go to social media for medical information. Not surprising when we just looked at the trust for social media and that they're 2 times as likely to go there for medical information. 1 in 4 wears a fitness or sleep tracker, and nearly 1 in 5 uses a food and water tracking app. Okay. So, hey, in tune with the health a little bit there. 1 in 4, and then 1 in 5 uses a water tracking app and food tracking app. They are 63% more likely than other generations to discuss menstrual cycles in the workplace. So what we're seeing is a trend of openness when it comes to health and well-being, when it comes to Gen Z. And they are 2 times as likely to share personal health information in exchange for guidance on how to best navigate the health system. It's not a bad thing. I mean, I don't know, and I'm only speculating here, but if you look at the boomer generation, were boomers as open and willing to share their own personal health information? I'm thinking not. And I'm thinking, just based on some personal family experiences where, you go, hey, my elbow hurts when I do this. And then somebody will say, oh yeah, great grandpa so-and-so had this similar thing and we didn't find out till later. And it's like, oh, I wish I had known that 15 years ago. Right. So kudos, hats off if they're willing to share some of the personal information to try and better understand how to navigate and leverage the healthcare system, right? The other area was social norms and policies. You know what? Before I do that, I'm getting ahead of myself. When we talked about mental health I want to focus on this for a second, actually. There was some stats done on how you break the silence with higher rates of self-reporting and treatment for mental health conditions. And there's a number of categories. So in the category where it says, I have not been dealing with a mental health issue, non-Gen Z in the last couple of years, and this is using US and UK data, 65%. Gen Z, 35%. Anxiety. Gen Z was at 42%. This is identifying. Non-Gen Z, 23%. Depression. Gen Z, 39%. Non-Gen Z, 21%. Again, I just want to remind everybody, they have higher rates of self-reporting and treatment for these different types of mental health conditions. PTSD, Gen Z, 17%, non-Gen Z, 7%. OCD, Gen Z, 12%, non-Gen Z, 5%. And then other, mental health conditions, 9% versus 4%. Half of Gen Z are being treated for at least one mental health issue. And this is nearly double that of other generations. So self-reporting and identifying more, also receiving more treatment than any of the other generations at half of that. Okay. So I just thought that was important to cover off before going on to one of the other topics when it comes to social norms and policies. And so I'm taking this from a report. I'm going to have a link to the report so you could read the whole thing, even download your own copy and read some of the different article material that goes with this. How does Gen Z deal with change and social issues and things of the sort? Okay, they are 92% more likely than other generations to protest. And that, I think that's amazing when you think of all the things that the boomers, came up with as well. They are 92% more likely than any other generation to protest. They are 2 times as likely to think collective action would enable them to be more engaged. Working together, collaboration of sorts, if you will. Again, not a bad thing. If you're a Gen Zer, not a bad thing. 32% engage in issues through social media, 68% more than other generations. So we keep seeing this trend continuing to pop up. We know that they consume and leverage and use social media more than any other generation, but they're also 32% more likely to engage in issues through social media. 21% of Gen Z would consider other jobs if the employer is not engaged in social issues. That's pretty meaningful. It speaks, I guess, if you will, and not knowing what the social issue might be and whether you believe it in or not, but it does show a certain element of character where they would consider other jobs if their employer is not engaged in social issues. And then 1 in 5 would switch brands if the brand had an opposing stance on issues. 1 in 5. So interestingly enough there too, and I think it's going to come up later if I look at some of the other stats, remember how many of Gen Z is on TikTok, because I think it'll become important a little bit later on. Foreshadowing, a hunch, I don't know. Using social media to engage on issues that you care about. 32% Gen Z, 19% non-Gen Z. Social media shaped your personal beliefs on the issues that you care about. Gen Z, 41%. That's 9% from half say that social media has shaped their personal beliefs on the issues that they care about. And you go, how valuable is it to have accurate information on social media, or to keep less accurate or lies off of social media if it's influencing the generation that has the highest population from all generations and is consuming the majority of the information on social media. A scary thought, but also an opportunity if you think about it. Gen Zers are 75% more likely to consider other jobs that better align with their values. Values are very important. How organizations attract that talent when it comes to Gen Z will depend on the organization's values and how they align to Gen Z. Important to keep that in mind. 80% are more likely to be less engaged at work in day-to-day activities. And 45% are more likely to go to fewer work events. Again, 5% away from 50, from half. So 45% are more likely to go to fewer work events. Now, if you think about, remote work and what has happened with some of the organizations, some of the companies, Gen Z is not interested in the office party is what I'm seeing here, okay? 45%. Not interested in that part of it. Not really seeing value sometimes in being at those work events even, which is why when they're being selective about the jobs that they're looking for, the employer and the values, that, they're making those types of decisions. Look, is remote work part of this? Do I have to go to an office? Do I have to do this work event? I'm not making this stuff up. And I know you see some of the stuff I've written in the past in the blogs and how, I believe in remote work and how effective and efficient it can be in the right situation. I didn't do this report. I'm just reading the report. Okay. Like if you sit there and go, oh, maybe Guido was right earlier. Maybe I was. All I'm saying is I didn't do this report. It might be supporting some of the things I might have said in the past though, right? Continuing with our look at Gen Z. Money. Where do we sit when it comes to money and marketing with Gen Z? 52% worry about their financial security and stability, more than double of the older generations. 52% are worried about their financial security and stability. And you look at what's going on right now with the inflation rates, you look at what's going on with affordable housing, you look at what's going on with politics and the economics, you look at how they, we all lived through the pandemic, but at the age that they're at and they went through that pandemic and there's doubt, there's distrust, there's the social media part of it. I get it. So they're worried about their financial security. It makes sense. Over half of them. Half of Gen Z cryptocurrency investors identify as female. And this makes this the most gender inclusive cohort in investing history. Half of Gen Z cryptocurrency investors identify as female. That's staggering. Staggering when you think about it, okay? 42% say money is a necessary evil to function in a capitalist world. A necessary evil. Says something about money. 43% say physical bank branches are important to them because they provide peace of mind. Now, this is a shift. A generation that's looking at, living in social media, doesn't need to go into an office, relies on information for healthcare. But when it comes to money, a physical bank branch is important to them because it provides them peace of mind. A structure, a building where their funds and they can interact with their funds through that building. 44% of eligible Gen Zers, 18 to 25, already own a credit card. I don't remember. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I owned a credit card at 25. I don't think that I did. It was a long time ago, maybe. But 44% of eligible Gen Zers already own a credit card. Kind of staggering numbers there, and some different shifts, if you will, when it comes to money. The other aspect of this that I was looking at was the marketing and brands and et cetera. 91% of Gen Zers are willing to pay extra for brands that support the causes they care about. So they're willing to put they're worried about financial security, but they're willing to put a few extra bucks down for a brand that supports the cause that they care about. And so if you're one of those brands and you're sitting on social media and you have the largest generation of all generation of world population, this isn't hard math to figure out, brands out there, right? 50%, this ties into this, 50% of Gen Zers use TikTok, but 2/3 of Fortune 500, Fortune 100 companies are not on TikTok. So you got half of a generation that makes up the greatest part of the population of the world is on TikTok. But 2/3 of the Fortune 100 companies are not on TikTok. I'm saying this and picturing in my mind the companies that are not on TikTok going and rushing out and setting up a TikTok account if they want that business from Generation Z. 1/3 of Generation Z say they trust what they see online. 1/3 say they trust what they see online. And 30% revert to their go-to brand for a new product or service. Right? 30% will revert to their go-to brand for a new product or service. So just some numbers there around loyalty and branding, and I don't get some of the marketing, I guess, and some of the brands out there that haven't tapped into this part of or haven't tapped into that generation in the way that the generation wants to be engaged. And maybe that's a good thing too. Don't get me wrong. Maybe that's a good thing because, is there a I'm not saying that Gen Z is vulnerable. I'm not saying if you're Gen Z, you're vulnerable. I'm just saying maybe if you're consuming all the information as is presented, and you see some of the numbers around the conspiracy and all of the other facets of engaging in social media, maybe it's okay if some of those brands aren't out there trying to capture you through social media and maybe delivering a message that isn't as trustworthy as it should be. Now, we started talking a little bit about work and remote work and how Gen Z views employers, et cetera. 62% of Gen Z are actively or passively seeking new jobs. So they're in a job, but 62% are either actively or passively engaged in seeking a new opportunity. 70% of those who say they are loyal to their employer are still actively or passively seeking new jobs. So I'm doing my job, I'm loyal to you, but it doesn't mean I'm not looking. That's the message, that if you're an employer, you have a Gen Z working for you, that's the message. So this is where some of those, hey, are you supporting my social causes? Are you being flexible? Are you offering remote work? Are we doing things that make sense? Are we being logical? Are we moving forward together? Am I part of this? Those are all important things to Gen Z. I think they're important things to everybody else, but I think Gen Z is just taking a whole different approach on this, a very bold approach on this with employers. 45% of Gen Z have something on the side. So loyal, willing to look for other work, but 45% have a bit of a, what's termed here in the report, a side hustle, okay? 78% see a lack of transparency as the biggest pain point in recruiting. That's a message. 78%. If you're an employer and you're recruiting, 78% see a lack of transparency as the biggest pain point in recruiting. I think I can get behind Gen Z on some of this stuff. I do. 85% prefer, here we go, drum roll, 85% prefer hybrid or remote work environments. 85%, I gotta say it 3 times. 85% prefer hybrid or remote work environments. And this is your largest portion of the population globally, okay? That's a message to employers, all right? Lastly, 60% agree with the statement, a job does not need to be fulfilling. It should enable me to find balance and fulfillment in other aspects of my life. And I think that feeds into the hybrid or remote work environments. It feeds into the transparencies. It feeds into loyalty. I think Gen Z's got the message here for employers that's saying, I matter. I'll do this work, but I matter, and I matter in a way that you might not think I matter, or traditionally, employees may not have mattered. And so they are definitely sending their own message. So that is my recant of the report that started with what Abacus Data sent out. And then, we went into these categories of spirituality and religion, news consumption, health and wellness, social norms and policies, money and marketing, and employment. And I encourage you, look, the report is quite a lengthy report by Oliver Wyman for him. And I'll have the link. I think it's 91 pages. And so I'm just giving you the highlights, but if you read through it, there's paragraphs, there's a little bit more information, and you could add a little bit more context. So thank you for listening. That is our segment on Gen Z, some of the other generations as well, here on the Monthly Social. All right, I enjoyed that segment. I hope that you did too. We're coming close to the end of the show, and it's been a full show. And I know that typically I publish the show at the beginning of the month, but I took a little bit of an extended summer break, something I hadn't done in a long time, but still delivered a lot of content for you in this episode. And I hope you enjoyed all of it. Now, before we get to that song, to close out the show and bring us into October, I want you to listen to one of our friends of the podcast. It's Lily Wexu. She was also on a previous episode of the Monthly Social, where we talked about voice over acting and a whole bunch more, as she had a ton of tidbits. But right now, let's hear from her first, and then we'll close out the show with a song.
Do you have a special connection with your voice? Are you curious about voice acting but don't know where to start? I'm Lily Wexu, a Los Angeles-based voice actress, and I would love to get you started on the right foot. Join me at getcleveraboutvo.com/sign-up and get a discount on my voice acting ebooks. They're like a backstage pass to my voiceover business, so you can cut to the chase, piggyback on my success, and start on the right foot. That's getcleveraboutvo.com/sign-up.
That is Lily Wexu, and she is a dynamic person. I hope you get an opportunity to check out themonthlysocial.com and our interview, as well as her website, and you could find out for yourself just how dynamic she is. Now, speaking of dynamic in music, we're going to close the show out with Corvus Lore and their #1 song on thepathradio.com. Here is Blind and Broken. See you next month, folks. Take care.